On my watch, I have 6:02 p.m. Good evening to everyone, and welcome to the General Body Meeting for Community Board 2. Hopefully, everyone has received the agenda, which lays out the format for this evening's meeting and the order in which we will go. With that, let me welcome everyone. Hope everyone had a great summer and that we're back to the rest of September. I like to enjoy as much sunlight as possible, so I'm not going to say summer's over, but we'll keep summer theme going until it's time to change the clocks. How about that? With that, let me introduce myself. I am Lenny Singletary. I'm Chair of Community Board 2. Our co-chairs or vice chairs are Mr. Leonard Jordan and Ms. Barbara Zalagranger. And then Ms. Thurston serves as our secretary. I will adopt the agenda as presented. Fantastic. And then let's move on. Has everyone has a chance to review the minutes from our June 2022 meeting? Are there any noted edits or corrections? If so, I would ask that you send them into the board office. Next item on the agenda is a presentation. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, open session. So as is custom with our new guidelines, if there are members from the community, non-community board members, members from the community who have an item that they want us to cover that is not on the agenda, if you would please indicate that by raising your hand or coming off mute, indicating who you are, the area within the district that you live in, and what's the item you'd like for us to address if it's not already on tonight's agenda. Seeing nor hearing anyone with a comment, we will proceed with the agenda as proposed. And then the first presentation this evening is from Department of City Planning and their comments around fiscal year 2024's community district needs. So do we have a representative from City Planning present?
Hi there. Yes, City Planning is present. My name is Stephen Everett. We represent the Planning Support Division, and we're ready to go.
Fantastic, Stephen, the floor is yours.
Perfect. Is it possible to share my screen? It looks like screen sharing's been disabled.
We'll enable that momentarily. You should be able to have access.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Hi, Mr. Everett. You should have co-host privilege and be able to share screen now.
Okay, bear with me just.
It's starting up.
Okay, excellent. So you can see our presentation?
Yes.
Perfect. Well, first, let me start with a thank you. I want to thank you for hosting us this evening. My name is Stephen Everett, and I'm the Assistant Director of Planning Support here at the Department of City Planning. And we've come this evening at the request of the board to introduce the CD needs process, which is an annual cycle in which all 59 community boards across the city submit a statement of needs, neighborhood needs, and budget requests so that city agencies can review and inform their planning and budgeting process in the upcoming fiscal year. So hopefully this will be of service to those who already know how the process works and to new members of the community board and the public. So we appreciate that this charter mandate for the submission of the statement of needs and budget requests comes, of course, on top of other commitments that the board has. And of course, right after a summer break. So welcome back to everyone. So thank you for taking this process very seriously and elevating your voices in the budgeting process. And we'll provide a 10-minute presentation, after which I understand that Chair Singletary will moderate a Q&A. So with that introduction, I'll introduce my team. I'm joined here tonight by Katie Ferrar-Ainito, Senior Program Manager here in Planning Support, and Nick Stampar, also an analyst here in Planning Support. We're also joined by Amritha of the Brooklyn office. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Katie.
Great, thank you, Stephen, and good evening, everyone. And again, thank you for having us. I should say many of you are probably familiar with our former Planning Coordination Division. presenting this work. Stephen, I'm just seeing 2 slides at once. I think if you can get out of presentation mode.
Sure.
Thanks.
Let me
It
swap. Is that better?
might be on a bit of a delay. I'm still seeing the same thing. There we go. Yes, that's exactly where I want to be. Thanks. So Stephen and I come from having a background in borough offices. I was formerly right in the Brooklyn office with Connie and Amrita. So I'm happy to be back with the Brooklyn board this evening. We also know this process from the perspective of the support that the borough office will give directly to each community board and are now in the role of coordinating it across the city. Stephen, you can go to the next slide. Thanks. So to catch everybody up, what is the community district statement of needs? This is a statement that you submit each fall, and it's a combination of 2 annual submissions that the city charter requires from all community boards. So DCP and the Office of Management and Budget, OMB, work together in recent years to streamline those 2 required processes and build one website where we can collect all of your annual submissions. The first component is the Statement of Community District Needs, and that's where you describe issues in your district and anticipated needs for services and programs. And this is content that can help you advocate for your community, independent of being a requirement. At DCP, for example, our borough office planner liaisons, like Amrita here, use that published needs statement to get to know their community boards and often refer people like potential developers to those reports so they can be aware of the board's goals, visions, and needs for the neighborhood. Now, the second part is your budget requests, and those are specific capital and operational line items that your board would like to see in the next budget to ensure that it responds to community needs. They should reflect, the requests you put in should reflect the needs that you outlined in the narratives in the first part. And they should also be developed in consultation with agencies and with public engagement when possible. Next slide, please. Thanks. So the calendar of the CD needs process is in lockstep in some ways with critical dates of the city publishing each year's budget. So we kicked off the process this summer, as many of you know, and the needs statement and budget requests are due from all community boards on October 31st. Now, after that, all the city agencies that get the budget requests have until December 15th to draft responses to all of your budget requests. Now, keep in mind, last year, there were about 3,800 total requests across the city. So as much as it's a crunch time for the boards, it's also unfortunately a crunch time for our agencies to give good responses, which is part of the reason that we're really here. Our number one goal is to help support you getting a comprehensive request in by October 31st this year. So after that, OMB publishes the agency responses and the budget updates in each version of next year's budget, which you may be familiar with. So starting in January with the preliminary budget until it's adopted before the next fiscal year next summer. So next summer we'll kick off fiscal year 24, and you know that we'll begin again for the fiscal year 25 process at that time. So what we really want you to take away here is just the importance of that October 31st date. As I said, meeting that deadline is something DCP is happy to help you here with. Next slide, please. So this is a sample schedule of some of the milestones that we believe boards might want to plan for in these months. I'm not going to go through all of this on the screen, but we will send you this presentation so you can review and consider in more detail. But I just want to highlight what we think is probably going to need to get done this month. So one is some of your board members likely attending the borough budget consultations. You've probably been to at least one so far. There's more information on what those are later in the presentation if you have questions. Another important step is scheduling September board meetings and October board meetings, including a hearing to go through the draft of the submission and to vote on it. And another thing you'll potentially be doing soon is assigning working groups or committees to cover certain sections of the statement and to review outcomes from last year's budget request to know what to include this year. Moving into October, a series of steps really aimed at making sure you're finalizing and submitting by October 31st. And then as we go November and forward, again, as I mentioned, that OMB distributes the requests to the agencies so that they can give their responses to include in the preliminary budget. Next slide. So I'm going to transition now to talk through the core components of what's actually included in the CD needs statement. Thanks. So there's 3 core sections of CD needs statement. I'm going to give a brief overview of each, but I want to point out we have much more detailed guidance. This really takes more than 10 minutes to kind of get a full lesson on. I'll give an overview, and we have a lot more detailed guidance and examples on our website. So we'll send links together with this presentation to things like that afterward. So the first section is focused on identifying your community's top 3 most pressing issues. There's an extensive drop-down of menu options from affordable housing to social services to traffic. You can also select the option other. But the really important thing here is that you select 3 and you provide a brief narrative on each, explaining why they're your top concerns in your community. Next slide. Thanks. So this is an example of a pretty good description of top 3 most pressing issue from a couple of years ago. So this board selected on their 3 issues, economic development, land use, and schools. And in their economic development narrative, part of what they wrote was about the need for support for local businesses during the COVID shutdown, and specifically the impacts of the city's open streets program. This is only part of a longer narrative, but it highlights a couple of things. One is a good practice of identifying a solution, a policy solution to the issue. Ideally something that could be implemented and expanded, like the Open Streets program here. Other good practices include using current data and making sure the narrative has been updated each year so it reflects the district's current issues and statistics. So, we saw a lot of changes in the last few years as COVID and COVID recovery brought some unique shifts in high needs in districts. Next slide, please. So the second step is broken down across 7 policy areas. So you do the same thing 7 times, essentially. In each one, you need to identify a most important issue and provide an explanation for why that's the most important issue in that policy area. Go to the next slide. Thanks. So this table shows the 7 policy areas that are included and which agencies' work they cover. For many boards, although admittedly not all, these generally align with the subcommittee assignments. The first 2 steps that are shown on the bottom there are for each of those policy areas is that you identify the most important issue, again, from a drop-down, a pretty lengthy drop-down of options, including another option for your community on that topic. And then slightly more specific needs you outline that for each agency. That each agency you believe may be able to provide solutions for in that policy area. And these are really brief narratives in this section. You can go to the next slide. Thanks. So the last section can also really be the trickiest and most time consuming, and that's making budget requests. So in each of those 7 policy areas, the next step is that you need to identify if there are things that you want agencies to include in the city budget to support your needs with services, infrastructure, or programs, and then you set the list of requests in order of your board's priority. So this is where you can see it takes a lot of consensus and you need time to plan around discussions around these things. Next slide, please. So what's shown here is the core components of each budget request. You have the order of priority. So they identified this as 20 out of their 46 capital requests. The type is capital versus expense. The drop-down menu actually helps you decide if you're not quite sure about the difference between capital and expense. It's also something we're happy to talk to you about to support you. A category of the request, and a slightly longer explanation that ideally includes things like a specific outline of what you'd like fulfilled. The good thing about this one, it included an explanation, is that it actually does that really clear outline of what they believe needs to happen in this park. So repaving, security lighting, reconstructing the sections of the riprap. This is a really ideal request because it allows Department of Parks and Recreation, I should say, to consider the comprehensive investments that can be made to a park, which aligns with how they do their budget practices. It's much more difficult when an agency is faced with, if each of those were individual budget requests, it may be more difficult for them to provide a clear and helpful answer. But this also, successfully notes a specific location. So, it's likely that they're able to get a clear answer. The one thing I'd note here is that I'm surprised there's no supporters noted. Do think about whether there's an elected official or a community group or a Friends of the Park group that has expressed specific support for something like this parks request. Next slide, please. Thanks. So I'll leave you with just a few key tips for the whole process and the submission. I've mentioned, I think, all of these, but my recommendation is to start working on this as soon as possible and make a plan to meet that October 31st deadline. We can help you with that. The narrative section, as brief as they are, they should be clear, ready to publish. They go in reports that go online, so proofreading is key, and incorporating current data. So we're gonna, in the next section, my colleague Nick is gonna talk about what data resources we have that you can use to update those. Refreshing content is a must. This is something that we've heard from agencies, is that if they're seeing the same content over and over, 5 years in a row or something, it can be difficult for them to understand if these are really reflective of the current needs and requests and priorities. Another key tip here is, I mentioned reviewing past agency responses to budget requests, so that you're removing requests that were already fulfilled last year and editing ones that may not have been successful, looking for ways to be more specific or more aligned with the way agencies are practicing their budget. And last, we always like to encourage, if you've mastered all those first three, it's great to check and look that you're putting forward a cohesive report. And a great way to do that is to reference the same content across elements. So a key question is, how does this budget request, I'm looking at a specific budget request, respond to the most important issue that I've identified? So you might identify your most important issue in a category and then find that you actually don't have any budget requests that solve that problem. So that's fixing that is one way to make sure your report reads really comprehensively and clearly and helpful for anybody that's reading it. So I'm going to turn this over to my colleague, Nick. You can go to the next slide, and he's going to take you through some of DCP's support and resources before we go to questions.
Thanks, Katie. So there's a number of different, obviously this, it's a lot of information. It's a big undertaking, even for folks that are used to doing it year after year. There may be some questions that you have or some ideas that are already running through your brain about sort of what directions you could take this. And you may not be sure where to go with those questions to maybe get additional detail to help build out your budget requests or build out your submissions. And so we've compiled some links and some info on some of the various data resources that the city provides online that you can use to sort of help build those out and answer some of those questions. So for instance, we have the Community District Profiles website, which is this fun interactive map tool that allows you to click around to different community districts in the city and sort of narrow in on various different issues across the city or in particular community boards and dive deeper into specific issues around population, land use, projects. A big takeaway from that is that you can also see your community board's previous year's submissions for CD needs. And so you can reference back to those to inform your input or your submissions for the new year. The New York City Facilities Explorer, let's say, for instance, that you're wondering where all of the schools in your district are located, and you've got somewhere that you sort of want to take that question and run with it. The Facilities Explorer is the perfect tool to help you identify where private facilities and various program sites are located in your district. The Zoning and Land Use application is a pretty specific tool for the zoning and land use of your district and what certain areas are mapped for in the zoning maps, what sort of development is allowed in those areas. And the NYC Population Fact Finder is sort of a corollary with census data and allows you to dive into up-to-date 2020 census information and all of the questions that might answer. Next slide, please. Earlier, Katie mentioned the borough budget consultations. Some of you may have already attended some of these. You may have had some of these in your schedule already, but this is just a plug that the borough budget consultations are hosted by OMB, the Office of Management and Budget, and it is a incredibly diverse range of meetings with all of these different agencies that fit in all of these different policy areas. Where the people, you can sit in on the meeting. It's as easy as clicking a Zoom link and listen to these agencies talk about their priorities as an agency, sort of what they are already working on, what they have room in their budget for. They can sort of inform maybe what you're thinking about suggesting or including in your particular your budget requests for this year. So those could be incredibly helpful info sessions. And we would highly recommend being involved with the Borough Budget Consultations and OMB to get a really good idea of how to tailor your submission and your budget requests to be relevant to what the agencies are already thinking about and working on. And next slide, please. And last but not least, we are an additional tool available to you to help support. I've included our email here. This is the email that will allow you to contact all three of us. So send your questions along, and whichever one of us sees it first, we'll be able to get back to you. We are obviously, we've got all these different tools we can refer you to, but also just for, sort of that human touch, that if you'd like some help with any of the various parts of this, incredibly complex and important process, we're more than happy to fill in and answer any of those questions. And so with that said, I do believe we have some time for Q&A that we can move into. And thank you all for your time.
Thank you to the representatives from City Planning for a very high level but thorough presentation. I would like to inform board members that the office has been fully involved with this process, and that you will be seeing information shortly on how we can make use of technology to achieve the requirements of the process. And you will all see them on your respective committee agendas. So that will facilitate some of the information that we're seeing. For example, there will be no need to create the working groups. The committees are that, and you will be able to respond as accordingly as we have in the past. It's just that this year we'll be taking a greater use of technology to get this achieved. So I'm going to open this up to questions from board members. I remind everyone that we have somewhat lengthy agenda, and if I don't get to everyone, your understanding will be appreciated as we move forward. So let me open it up to board members, and let me start with Emily.
I was going to do that thing where I try to give someone else who was ahead of me, but I know you're in charge, so I didn't. But thank you, Chair Singletary. So Nicholas, my question for you and the previous speaker. And so in 2020, when I first started participating in the board, that's actually how I ended up joining the board full time. Is one of the projects that I self-selected to take on was, for me, it was the first time I'd even understood that there is this process of the community district of needs. And in particular, when I think about CB2, where you have extreme effects of gentrification, and I mean this from like the actual income standpoint, not like the racial implications that come with it. And so what I ended up doing was basically, because if you look at basically the statement of need, or sorry, the document that the city produces, it makes CB2 look like it is a very affluent, everyone lives close to a park, everyone speaks English as a first language, everyone has health insurance. And so I looked at basically the census tracts on the DeKalb side of Fort Greene Park, where I live, and then the Myrtle side, and what you saw was a discrepancy of median income of like $80,000 as an example. So are there proactive steps that the city is taking or at your level so that we're not seeing such rolled up views? And again, we're happy to do that work on our side, but it just, for me, it just really struck me the way that information is presented. And so my question is around, is there a move to get greater fidelity even within districts?
You're referring to the kind of highlight of some summary statistics right at the beginning of the report. That's really good to note. I mean, that is, in our use of the report, I'll be honest, it's just there kind of for what we believe to be the community board's information, or maybe somebody that's entirely unfamiliar with the community board's information. But when we direct agencies to understand a summary of what has been requested and the rationale for what's been requested, we're not really including those high level summary statistics or highlighting them for the purpose of agencies reviewing or making decisions moving forward. We are always very glad to see when a board has included some things like additional statistics or resources. One of the things Nick pointed out was the population fact finder. That's where you can get down to those neighborhood levels and include the most current things like income and highlight those discrepancies as part of your requests. And so that information does get to the agencies when they're making their decisions. And that summary at the beginning, I'll be honest, the structure of the report is something our team is rethinking in kind of the medium term. It may not look different in the report that comes out through this particular cycle, but it's a great flag if you think it's not really helpful or reflective. As I reflect on it, I don't necessarily think it's a fully critical part of the report, and would be happy to rethink it and get more feedback on that.
Thank you. I'll follow up with you.
If I may offer just one extra piece of that, is that we would encourage you to be as geographically specific as possible in your budget requests. If, for example, there are discrepancies in services provided across the board, we encourage you to request where you need those services most fulfilled, and that agencies are encouraged on their end to inform their own planning practices and budgeting with the specific examples of geographic requests that you provide. However, the city charter mandates that the statement of needs and budget requests be submitted at the level of the community board. So again, we encourage you to be geographically specific, but it is CB2's responsibility to provide a single statement of needs with all of their budget requests within.
Ms. Feinbush? Yeah, I need you to come off mute so we can hear you.
Yeah, I'm just trying to digest it, but I see we described the high level needs, the data, but then the budget request is very, very specific. So when I think of the whole district or the communities in our district, I can think of certain needs, but the budget requests, let's say from my committee, which is education, might be for a specific playground in a specific school, but that doesn't reflect the whole district needs. I didn't examine every playground in every school, I visited whatever. I don't want to take too much time, but I'm trying to grapple with the big picture vis-a-vis the budget request. And then, okay, I know which school needs a playground and has had difficulty getting that. I wouldn't have any idea how much it costs. And I also think that's beyond what a volunteer community board member would have to research.
Well, luckily, that's not one of the required. The example that I showed had, that request for, repairs in the parks. It is not at all required that you provide a cost estimate. That is the job of Parks Department, SCA, everybody else that would be involved in that. It is always very helpful when you have some prior discussion with that agency and you have a sense of the scale of the cost of what you're requesting. It will make perhaps their responses, make a little bit more sense. It also, I don't want to, brush over the fact that another step in this process I didn't really talk about in detail, but is the prioritization list. So you put the budget requests in order of priority. So you may or may not know, this is a $25 million project, but this is a $1 million project. But you do know if there is limited resources in the city, I'd like this one to go first. And I understand that there's next ones down the line that we might be including in future years. I hope that helps, but overall, I do want to make sure that that you don't have to provide that cost estimate as part of this process.
Okay, and we can consult with you further on the phone or the email specifically. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Ms. Sala Green?
Thank you. Just quickly, I see, there's a new emphasis here on the content and giving robust, timely content, but the response, are you doing something similar with the agency so that we get better responses from them? Because their responses tend to be very short and routine. That's one question. Then very quickly, one of the frustrating aspects of doing this or doing anything related to budget matters is it takes so long to see the results. Is your office doing anything to try to shorten the period? You talk about, I'm involved with the Parks Committee and we talk about something today, we're not going to see it. It's not going to start happening for a year and a half. And is there any effort from your office to try to address that? Thank you.
I can take this one. So unfortunately, the cycle works in such a way that each of the 59 boards present the statement of needs and all the budget requests. You know, like Katie said, last year there were 3,800. Those get distributed to the Department of City Planning, our group, and to the Office of Management and Budget, and then further out to the agencies for planning for the upcoming fiscal cycle in the event that they are able to agree with well, understand first that the board has made a budget request that they can accommodate, agree with it, and then assure that it works within their own priorities. There's no way that we're aware of to shorten the time frame for implementation, because even if an agency comes back and says this does fit within our upcoming fiscal year cycle, again, we're talking about fiscal year 24 that begins next summer, it is then up to them to figure out per the project and per the budget request when actually that work would happen. So we can't force an agency to say, yes, we're able to build that park in August, for example. All we will know and all they'll be able to offer you as a function of this particular process is whether it can be included in that fiscal year cycle. We're happy to discuss and share this concern that there can be, and that's when they say yes. We're happy to share the concern that it can be a much longer process if, for example, the response is we don't understand this budget request or we need more information. And we're very much aware in our team that that is the most frustrating response that the board can receive. It's easy for an agency to say yes or no. It's much harder from your perspective and all the board's perspectives to hear an answer that is neither a yes nor a no, but is somewhere in between and perhaps relies on a bit more of a conversation back and forth. Happy to share that information with the boards, with the agencies, and figure out a way to improve responses to lessen that frustration. We're very much aware of it and appreciate the concern.
Thank you.
Mr. Flanoy?
Thank you, Chair Singletary. One of the pressing issues that we have in this district is the BQE cantilever reconstruction. We've actually put that as a priority repeatedly as a capital request. What are your suggestions as far as going forward with this? Is this a district need or is it a borough need?
I'm sorry, I think I missed the first part of that. What exactly is the request you mentioned?
The BQE cantilever, reconstruction.
Let's follow up. We'll have to review the specific budget request. I mean, this sounds like the right process to facilitate that request, but there may be a way to facilitate this conversation. I think we would do ourselves benefit to take a look at this one more directly and provide you a better answer than specifically it is in the right place.
It is in the right place.
No, sorry. I'm saying let's look at it before we just say you're doing the right thing. We'll look at that specific request from your submission last year and provide you more of an answer than that.
Okay, thank you.
And this is something that, we do work with 28 agencies through this process, DOT being the prime one in the case of BQE, I assume. And they're likely the ones providing the response. So it's also something that I'd encourage you definitely to bring up at the borough budget consultations and any other regular communication that you have with DOT, maybe with the specific consultation on, how does this fit in as a budget request? How does it, learning how it fits in with DOT's budget? I'm not sure what year they included in that may be impacting the quality of their response in this particular fiscal year exercise. But that's something, as Stephen said, we'll take a closer look, but it would be something we would ideally need to include DOT on any discussion to really get you the guidance that you're seeking.
Mr. Husey?
Thanks, DCP, for your presentation. I was just wondering if you could elaborate on what the kind of overarching purpose of the borough budget consultations are, sort of what the format of these meetings is. Is it a working group? Is it a presentation? Who are the active participants of these meetings? And I didn't notice a link on that slide. How can we participate in those meetings?
Yeah.
So these are coordinated by the Office of Management and Budget. They're not a DCP initiative, so my answers will probably be incomplete. But from a high level, your borough, your community board leadership has likely gotten the invitations to each of those. They're one Microsoft Teams link per each of those days. And the community board is welcome to send individuals to join any of those. They're usually 60 to 90-minute meetings. And from my understanding, since they've gone remote, we have a mix of leadership and budget professionals from each of those agencies present that are providing an overview of kind of how they do their budget and what their priorities are they're expecting them to be, and answering questions from community board leaders. Some of them have received questions in advance. That's honestly part of the process that I'd have to ask OMB about, unless your board leadership is familiar with how they coordinate those over the summer. But many are just there to provide an overview and to answer questions, to my understanding.
So thank you, board members, for asking questions. I am going to make an exception and allow our former chair, Mr. Dew, to ask a question. But again, this is for board members. Mr. Dew?
Thank you, Chair Singletary. Department of City Planning. I've been on this community board for over 2 decades. The downtown Brooklyn corridor went through an upzoning over 2 decades or so ago. The affordable housing that is provided via the upzoning does not accommodate the folk that live in the community. Now, you mentioned city planning has something to do with affordable housing. I'm not quite sure what role city planning plays in assuring that the housing in the community is affordable for the people that live in the community. We have the affordable housing accommodate unit occurs at all levels. Can you speak to affordable housing?
I can try to answer this, Mr. Dew. We expect to come back to the community board to have some conversations around this topic. We recognize that this is something that you have submitted requests to us on, just to kind of revisit existing needs in the area and also reflect on the evolution of the neighborhood since the 2004 plan. So we will follow up with you.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone. Let me just repeat for the benefit of our new board members, because we have quite a few. Some of this is going to be new to you. Others it won't be. As we continue to go through the process, and particularly in the following information that's going to be communicated from the board office and in the conversations that will take place in the respective committees, this will become more familiar. You'll be able to get a better understanding. And then, as was presented from the colleagues from city planning, we do have resources, a presentation, things that we can draw back to. So I recognize that it's new for many, but you'll start to appreciate the process, and we will be for full participants as we always have in the past. So thank you all for tonight's presentation. We appreciate it. And thank you to the board members and those who ask questions. More to come, more to come.
Thank you so much for having us, Chair Singletary. We really appreciate it.
No, thank you. Have a great evening. You're welcome to stay, but I anticipate I won't see you, so it's okay.
We will take leave.
Thank you for having us. Good evening.
Good evening. So now we're up to agenda item number 6, committees for board action. We're going to start with economic development and employment. Bill Flournoy.
Thank you, Chair Singletary. I'd like to recognize Denise Peterson as my co-chair and Catherine Gilman as my secretary. We had a committee meeting on Tuesday, September 9th. At that committee meeting, the Urban Space New York City did a presentation for the Borough Hall Holiday Market. Presenting was Even Shelton and Ronnie Opang. What they're looking to do is they're looking to open a holiday market very similar to what you see at Bryant Park, Columbus Circle, and Union Square. As a matter of fact, they actually manage those 3 sites. They're looking to operate about between 80 to 100 booths. The time frame they're looking to do that is between the dates of November 28th and December 26th. So the permit is going to be for a temporary permit for 29 days. They're looking to have the market open between 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. Currently right now, they are still open for submissions, requests for booths. But right now, they're not going to actually be there's going to be a food market that's going to be there, and there's going to be this market. They will not be interfering with each other. The actual holiday market will be, as you can see right here on the actual screen here, it's going to be around the Borough Hall office. It will not be interfering with the food market. There will also be a lane for people to go by without interfering or having to actually be involved in the actual market itself. Okay. Currently right now, this has been scaled down. They were actually talking about having an ice skating rink and a couple other items going on here. For right now, this is the first time they're doing this. They're going to see how it works, and then from there, we'll see if they expand it or not. Currently right now, there are going to be 3 types of booths. There's going to be a full booth, which will be running for about $6,500 to rent it for the entire session. They have a double booth, which will be going for $13,500. And they have a half booth, which will be going for $4,000. So currently right now, they have submissions that have already been in, but they still have lots that are booths that are available for those who are interested. We had a discussion with them. We asked them how many of the bids have been involved as far as outreach, as far as also reaching out to the individual small businesses in the area. They basically have done this outreach, and they have had pretty good success. Currently right now, we're looking to see them continue outreach because they have, as of yet, they're looking to continue to allow people to add submissions for booths. They have actually been very flexible about that because initially the submissions were closed. We took it to a vote. Okay, the vote for support of this market. Denise Peterson made the motion. Ms. Morales seconded. The motion passed 9-0-0.
So thanks, Bill. Just a correction, the agenda shows 7-0-0. So what's the real vote? 7 and 9.
You know, I actually took a roll call. Okay, so what
I just need
happened
the
was
number, 7 and 9.
You know what, to be quite honest with you, I believe it was 7-0-0.
Excellent. So everything is good. I don't have to make any adjustments. I'll entertain a motion to accept the committee's recommendation. Ms. Zalagringa, second, Mr. Lastawecki. Is there any discussion on the motion? Ms. Daughtry.
Thank you, Chair Singletary. I just have a quick question. I think the idea of this is really great. It makes a whole lot of sense. I wondered if the committee discussed the rental rates and whether there was a direct correlation with the rental rates and the fact that they're still accepting applications. To me, the amount seems high, but I'm not in that world, so I could be totally off the mark. Thank you.
No. As a matter of fact, Ms. Daughtry, we actually discussed that. We were talking about the fact that some individuals, especially some retail merchants, had some problems with with financing because of what happened with COVID. They weren't open on a continuous basis. So they are willing to be flexible about that. And there are some, for not-for-profits, it's a reduced rate, and they're also willing to work with individuals.
Mr. Jordan?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Singletary. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Flanoy. I just had one question. I might have missed this. Would anything that they'd be selling in these booths be in competition with the markets that are there already?
Well, the idea basically is the actual individual stores in the area have been asked, there's been outreach to them that they want to participate in the markets, they will, but this is not going to be in front of any of those stores. Okay, so in the event that anyone wants, I don't know, it's not going to be in direct competition.
Okay. Thank you.
Emily?
Quick question, did they talk at all about just basically how many minority owned businesses or anything they're doing to ensure that they're also like a good representation of brown and black owned businesses at this market, given the prices?
Yes, we brought that up also. The outreach has been made, but it's up to those individuals if they wish to participate.
Okay, I'll follow up with you. Thank you.
Okay, understood.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, either raise your hand or come up mute and say aye.
Aye.
Carlson Gordon, aye.
Aye.
Sid Meier, aye.
Zero Scala, aye.
Ernest, aye.
Okay, great. Those who oppose, please follow the same protocol. And those who abstain, would you please follow the same protocol? Jessica, we're good?
We're good.
All right, great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Bill, for the presentation, the committee action for economic development. Next committee to report is the HES Committee, HES Health, Environment, and Social Services.
Good evening. Nice to see you all. My name is Brandon Smith. I'm the chair of the HES Committee, and my co-chair is Nicole McKnight, and my secretary, Jessica Thurston. We had 8 liquor licenses that we heard that were new liquor licenses at our meeting last week. We did approve all the new liquor licenses. There was one renewal that we voted to deny. I can get to that if we'd like, but I'll go through each of the new liquor licenses on the agenda, and we can take them as folks prefer. The first item that we've got is 56 Adams, Philomena. This location is going to be a full service restaurant. You can see it's located in Dumbo. It's had a beer and wine license since 2005, so upgrading to full liquor. There's no outdoor seating here, background music only, no private events. There were no concerns that had been raised about the location to date, and there was a letter of support from the Dumbo bid with no concerns and no red flags associated with this. We voted to approve this item 700. The next item that was brought up at our meeting was 306 Gold C2 Pollo Doro. This is a fine cuisine Peruvian food spot. You can see Gold Street right over near Flatbush. This location is going to be open until 10:30 for alcohol Monday through Wednesday, 11:30 on Thursday, 12:30 Friday, Saturday, and then 11:30 on Sunday. There were 10 local petition signatures. There were no concerns that were expressed about the location. And they indicated they hold some private events for the Consulate of Peru. After the discussion, we voted to approve this application 700. The third and the final of the 3 new liquor licenses that we heard was 660 Fulton. It's going to be called Divine DBA Angelina. This location formerly was known as Frank's Cocktail Lounge. It was located, it's on Fulton between Fort Greene Place and South Elliott Place. Frank's Cocktail Lounge, exactly what you might imagine. It was a bar that was open until about 4 a.m. every night. This location is going to be open until 10 p.m. Monday through Thursday and 2 a.m. on Thursday through Sunday. We had a bit of a discussion at the committee with the applicant about the next door building because they had mentioned on their liquor license application to us that there were no adjacent residents, but it looked like a residential apartment building, and the attorney and I sort of came to the same conclusion about that it was at the same time. So the issue then became on the roof of this building, which is about 2 stories. You've got a rooftop that they had been seeking to have open until 2 a.m. And we had a discussion about what kind of communication occurred with the residents, and it didn't seem like there was any communication with any nearby residents. So upon having that discussion, our committee noted that the next door building, the one with the residents, actually also has a bar at the bottom of it, which is its outdoor seating is open until 11 p.m. And the applicant really wanted to have their outdoor seating open through 12. And there was some discussion that whether it would be fair to keep them open till 12 or what with the community. And no community members were present to express any concern or support at the meeting. But the outcome was we voted 7-0-0 to approve, but with a few conditions. Specifically, with regard to the outdoor area on the roof, the applicant has to come back to us with evidence that he's reached out to the neighbors at the residence and obtained their buy-in that they're okay with the outdoor seating being open until midnight. Midnight was the agreement that we had for the weekend closing time. The weekdays are going to still be 10 p.m. We also had a bit of a discussion about the neighborhood, but the end of it was that there was this vote 7-0-0 with the condition that the applicant show proof that he's had engagement with the neighbors. The next liquor license, and we're getting into, I shouldn't call it liquor license, beer and wine. We're getting into the beer, wine, and cider. The first one was called Tipsy Grape. Those of you who came to the executive committee meeting last month may remember that this applicant had come to the executive committee and the attorney wasn't sure where the outdoor seating was going to be located. So we had asked them to come back to this meeting, and we heard them. As it turned out, this location is going to be on Smith and Pacific, and they interestingly are going to seek to have 20 tables that are all 2 tops with a total of 40 seats out on the street at this location, which they'll have to get through the appropriate authority for that. But we had a discussion about several other aspects of their application as well, because the signatures on this application were almost all not from the neighborhood. There was a signature from Staten Island, there were signatures from like East New York, there were signatures from all different parts of the city, but none from anywhere near this location. And with upstairs neighbors who the applicant had not reached out to, and their desire to have outdoor seating open until 1 a.m. with the indoor seating is going to be 1 a.m. on Friday and Saturday and Sunday, and midnight on Monday through Thursday. We decided that we could approve this, but with several conditions. First, the outdoor seating needs to close at 10 p.m., not 1 a.m. And secondly, they had wanted to have amplified sound at this location, and not having spoken with the neighbors and with them indicating they didn't want to do soundproofing, we made it a condition, and they agreed that they would do soundproofing in their establishment. Thirdly, we asked that they go out and have a community meeting with people locally in the community, because there didn't seem to be anybody who lived anywhere near this place that had been that we had evidence they've been contacted, and get the neighbors' support for their application before they start operating. And with the applicant agreeing to all of these different things, the committee voted to approve this 7-0-0. The next application that we heard was 163 Plymouth. It's called Usagi. This is an art gallery / cafe. It's going to be open 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Monday to Wednesday, and 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. on Thursday through Sunday. I believe this, and yep, no outdoor seating at this location. And they're going to do background music. They're going to do kind of art gallery like private events. The food they serve, there's Japanese food. We spoke about the fact their restaurant has been open for a while already, and it was voted to approve 7-0-0. Next, we have 80 Front Street Pizza. Front Street Pizza is open from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday to Friday, 11 to 9 on Saturday. They've been there for 30 years. They've been serving, the previous owner had been serving beer, wine, and cider, and we have a new owner there. There were no incidents under the previous owner. There were 4 local letters of support, including one from a Parks Committee member. And there were no concerns that were raised about this location. There's some effort by DOT to redo the outdoor sidewalk, and they haven't decided whether to apply for open restaurants. So we approved that application 7-0-0. The next application we heard from was 523 Fulton. It's called Smash Burger, the burger restaurant. They are open 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. They have 19 restaurants across the city. No outdoor seating, and they hadn't made any community outreach, but at the same time, there weren't very many red flags about this application either. Applicant or this application was voted in favor 6-0-0. One of the members had left the meeting by that point. Next application we heard from 147 Front Street, Chef On Site LLC. This is a 10-seat chef's counter that operates sort of like a supper club. It's going to be down in Dumbo. The hours of operation are 5 p.m. to 12 a.m. on Monday to Thursday, 5 p.m. to 12:30 a.m. Friday to Saturday, and closed Sunday. What's notable about this was that we had received a number of complaints as a community board from people in the community who were concerned about this applicant apparently offering BYOB, bringing your own alcoholic beverage to the location. And we had a long discussion with the applicant where the applicant denied offering BYOB at his location, said he would not offer it. Then it turned out he had an FAQ about how he did offer it on the website for the restaurant. And there were photos of people drinking at the restaurant. It was very clear that there was actually BYOB going on at this restaurant. And those of you who know liquor law know that BYOB is not legal in New York State. So thinking about this and how we might address the issue after we spoke with the applicant extensively. I mean, this is a location with no outdoor seating, 10 seats in total. We did move to approve this application. It was supported 6-0-0, but there were several amendments here. And specifically, the applicant needs to take down the representations on their website that they are offering BYOB. Secondly, they need to put up signage indicating that they do not offer BYOB, because the applicant was agreed he's not going to offer BYOB. Thirdly, they need to actually not offer BYOB, which I think will help make the point to the liquor authority why we might be requiring that. Fourthly, they need to have a community meeting with folks in the community at this time before it opens, as well as around the time of renewal. There were definitely, I think, some concerns about credibility of this applicant because he had basically said something that was later disproven in the middle of our meeting. Finally, there was an article that the applicant claimed from the website Grubhub, alleging that he was offering some of these services, and he also had stated there was some misinformation in that website about him. So he agreed to go back to Grubhub and ask them to retract that information from his perspective. With all of those conditions, that application was approved 6-0-0. And that concludes all of the new applications that we heard. As I mentioned earlier, we approved all of the renewals with the exception of one that we voted to deny. I'm happy to go through that one, or I leave it at the discretion of the chair how to proceed.
So briefly, let's go through the one that was denied.
Sure. In our committee, we've not had a ton of circumstances where we've actually had clear evidence of a actual violation of the terms of a license before. But the one instance that we have in very clear form has been with 85 Flatbush Tillery Hotel. There's about a 6 or 7 year saga where we have dealt with many different representatives of different forms of management for this hotel, where their outdoor beer garden that faces a residential neighborhood had been offering music, loud music, amplified music, acoustic music, and it got to a point where the neighbors were concerned and coming to our meetings that we had a meeting with the applicant, and they agreed on different occasions that they were going to not have amplified music. Then they agreed to no music at all. And then new management took over and they just started playing music, and the neighbors came back to us. And this was within the last renewal period. So at that time, we didn't have any action we could take on the license, but what we did do as a community board at that time was we wrote a letter to the State Liquor Authority and advised them of the fact that the applicant was acting not in compliance with their license. And just to show the complete transparency of this, we had invited the hotel to one of our meetings within the last 2 years, and they had confirmed that not only that they did play music, but that they were going to continue to play music regardless of what the community board did. And at this point, we came here September 2022. We haven't heard anything for 9 months. None of the community members who came to us previously came to this meeting, but we felt, given the seriousness of what had happened since the last liquor license approval, that it was appropriate to vote to deny this motion, and we voted 6-0-0 to do that. So that's a summary of our decision.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. So given the actions that have taken place and seeing how they were all unanimous from the committee, and we're not going to have another committee meeting over the items that were just presented, are there any objections to voting on these as a slate?
Yes. Lenny?
Yeah, Ernie, I'm waiting for you to say
Okay.
something else.
Yeah, I like to talk about the Frank's Place on Fulton Street.
All right, so hold that. So there's one request to pull Frank's Place out. Are there any other requests?
Yes.
Sid Meyer, I have a question about the Smith and Pacific, a couple of questions about the Smith and Pacific. So can we pull that one out too?
So
Yeah,
hold on.
the tipsy great.
Hold on, Barbara.
Yeah.
Give me 1 second. So we're going to pull out Frank's Place. No, it's not called Frank's Place anymore. What's the address?
Six.
Called
60
Fine.
Fulton and
660
110 Smith.
Fulton, yeah.
Okay, so I got 60 Fulton, I got
Thanks.
110 Smith. What else?
And Mr. Singletary, the 147 Front Street, I would want to separate that one out in addition to the 660 Fulton and the 110 Smith.
Okay. Any other carve outs? All right, so let me do this. I'm going to entertain a motion to accept the committee's recommendation for 56 Adams, 306 Gold, 163 Plymouth, 80 Front, 523 Fulton, and 85 Flatbush.
So moved, Sid
So
Meier.
moved.
Second by
Leonard
Mr.
Jordan.
Jordan. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, either raise your hand or come off mute and say aye.
Aye. Sid Meier,
Aye.
aye.
Ernest, aye.
Yeah.
Aye, Carlton Gordon.
I got it. That's good. Anyone opposed?
I see a lot of hands raised. Can you please lower your hands for right now, just so I can tell what those votes are. Ciro and Sid, are you opposed?
No, I'm lowering my hand. It takes me a little while to get to it. I'm sorry.
And any
So let me
abstentions?
do this again. Anyone opposed? Okay, anyone abstaining?
Great.
Okay, great. So now let's take the first one. I'll entertain a motion to accept the committee's recommendation for 660 Fulton.
Carlton Gordon, so
move.
moved.
Second, yeah.
So moved by Mr. Gordon, second by Daughtry. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Yes, I would like. Can I move?
We have our hands up. So
Okay, let me put my hand back up.
Yeah, so
Okay.
so hold on, Ernie. I feel the passion, so I'm calling you first because I can feel the energy. Go, Ernie.
Yeah, I keep calling it Frank's Place, but I noticed it's been sold. I'm sorry I didn't make the meeting for the health and social services, and I was totally unaware. But I am aware of complaints from residents on South Elliott Street regarding excessive noise. In particular, a very good neighbor called Sandy Rayburn, who lives on South Elliott. She's been suffering, and with other neighbors, the entire summer from loud DJ music that basically rattles her windows. Her property abuts and in the back, 660 Fulton Street. She knew that when it was Frank's Place and they had some issues, but now she's more concerned about more noise that's coming. And I think that the committee should hear from her and her neighbors regarding their concern regarding 660 Fulton Street. She's about ready to pack up and move, she told me at this point. There's very little that's can be done about the Wallace Square DJ at this point, but it's incumbent that we, at least the committee, convene a meeting and to invite the proprietor from 660 Fulton Street, whoever they are, and to meet with these neighbors on South Elliott. She has no problem with Denise, the Turkish restaurant. She said they're perfect neighbors. She loved them, but has expressed concern about this proposal to have rooftop music activity on at 660. So I would like to say that we should meet with them, or the committee can meet with them to address her concern. She has reached out to Andrew Wright, who's a aide to Councilwoman Crystal Hudson. I see Andrew is on the Zoom call this evening. I don't know if you want to add anything to it.
Yes, the floor is not for Andrew. Are you done with your
No, I understand. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Jordan?
yeah, Thank you, Mr. Singletary. So, Mike, I have a concern. The three that we talked about, 660, 110 Smith, and 147 Front, about all conditions that are there. I believe that when a entity comes to the committee that, besides some maybe a little minor thing, there might be a condition. There are a number of conditions, and I'm just not comfortable with approving them without any, what do you call it, guarantee that they're going to meet all of these. It's a couple of them, two of them, they haven't even reached out to the neighbors. The other one is, I think, a question on integrity. And that's the 147 Front. So I just have a problem with giving approval with all of these conditions. I appreciate the effort that the committee put forth, and thank you, Mr. Smith, for your report. But that's the way I feel about that, and we really don't have a guarantee that they're going to adhere to all of these conditions that we gave them. So I don't have to speak on the other three, but those are the ones that I have concern about: 660 Fulton, 110 Smith, and 147 Front. And also the, I'm sorry, the 147 Front, it says 000 there. So I was a little confused there as far as the,
Yeah, we noticed the
Correct.
correction. It's 600 because that,
Oh, okay.
one
Okay.
person left.
All right, thank you.
Sid?
Yeah, I have a similar, and I agree with Mr. Jordan about the issue with 110 Smith. I mean, if they haven't gone out and spoken to.
We have not
Well,
taken a, we're not voting on 110 Smith or discussing yet, just so you know. The motion on the
Okay.
floor is for 660 Fulton, unless you want to do them all together.
No, we're going to do them one at a time. So, Sid, you had your hand
Then
raised.
well, that's why I'll put it down until I get to it. But Mr. Jordan discussed all three, and I have the same concern that he raised.
No, I
That's
mean,
it.
listen, the floor is yours. Make your comment, right? Because I want to be efficient.
Well, my comment is it's a similar comment to Mr. Jordan. They haven't been out to the neighbors yet. It's really difficult if once it's approved, even with conditions, as we can see, that people ignore the conditions all the time. So I would prefer to table 110 Smith when we get to it, pending them actually doing what they said they're doing and meeting with the Board Mill Association. That's it.
All right, so when we get to 110, don't repeat that. Remember that thought, but don't repeat it. Okay.
I won't. I promise you I won't repeat it.
I got you.
Promise.
I got you. All right. Any other discussion on the items listed, in particular 660 Fulton? Let me hear from the chair, Mr. Smith.
Thanks. Just a couple of clarifications. I don't mean to suggest I'm going to argue with any aspect of this, but I want to just point out, because I think I omitted, 660 Fulton will be having background music only. There will be no live music. There will be no live amplified music. There will be no DJ. And secondly, with regard to 660 Fulton, it is a condition that for this applicant that they provide proof to the community board of having met with the neighbors and actually gotten acceptance from the neighbors of their buy-in. So we'll see, and if what the answer may be if this is approved, and if there is an instance where, let's say, the neighbors didn't get an opportunity to meet, and I don't know, maybe this person who Mr. Augustus mentioned can be connected with the applicant somehow by the board office to ensure that they're able to reach out to each other. I don't know. Those are just a couple of thoughts that I had.
So let me just ask a clarifying question. Is the recommendation to vote on 660 Fulton based on the committee's recommendation with an unknown example of unknown proof of meeting one of the conditions?
I'm not sure what you mean by unknown proof.
Well, so you if I understood you correctly, you said that this was a recommendation that the 660 Fulton reach out to the residents. And
Correct.
At this time, we don't have any confirmation that they've done that, correct?
Well, not only that, we have confirmation they have not reached out to the residents.
Okay, so So it's kind of, I mean, just think about this in layman's terms, it's kind of hard to vote in favor of something for this a condition that's not yet been met.
Well, we can vote in favor of it, or you can vote against it. I encourage you to vote however your conscience is. I think the condition is essentially what the applicant agreed to do, to go out to reach out to the neighbors, which would be this building that's next to him, and get proof that the individuals in this building are supportive of his application to have a rooftop with liquor service. And that's the until midnight, that on weekends. That's the nature of what needs to be shown, and it's on the applicant to do that. And if he doesn't do that, and he's operating on the roof, then if he doesn't show proof and he starts operating on the roof till midnight, then I would say that would be clear grounds for raising a statement about his compliance with his license.
Yeah, but at that point, it's too late.
Significantly late.
Yeah, significantly too late. You can't. That's risky to put. Listen, I'm not going to rehash the meeting. Okay, got it. Any other questions, Ms.
May I make a motion to table that one?
No, Ms. Hubbard.
You have 4 hands
Ms.
up.
Hubbard, listen. Let me do this. I got this. I don't need any help right now. Ms. Carolyn Hubbard, coming and worry.
You're mute, Miss Common Mary. Carolyn, you're on mute. We cannot hear you. Okay.
I'm sorry, I was trying very hard. My finger couldn't seem to do it. Anyway, I attended the Hess meeting and I brought up the fact that it's not just the building adjacent on Fulton Street that has tenants, but like Ernie mentioned, the ones on South Elliott. And if you could see how the alignment of buildings works out, those buildings are exactly behind 660 and would have to experience more noise. It's a problem for them, and that's why it's so critical that the owner, although I certainly understand his point of view, which is that he spent a lot of money purchasing this building and now he doesn't want to end up in a financial situation that's difficult for him. But as you can see, 98 and 100 are right behind that building. And also on the Fort Greene side, the bedrooms of those apartments face the 660, the rear of 660, and certainly would receive the noise if they were having dinners and music on the roof.
Miss Ali?
Yeah, I just want to say that after coming out from the pandemic and being a bar, his whole business model depends on the liquor license. So I believe we should approve it and trust that he will follow through on the promises he made to the committee. And, you know, made aware that if he fails to do so, he will be monitored, you know, based on complaints from the neighbors. But I really don't think we should hold back a license from a business whose whole livelihood and his workers' income depends on the sale of his alcohol at the bar.
I appreciate that point, but that same point is more of a reason why it's incumbent upon the proprietors to make sure that they engage with the community. The same responsibility he has to his business and to his workers is the same responsibility that's required for him to do the due diligence with his community.
Well,
So,
when he received the package, was that told to him?
But that's consistent with all of the liquor applications. You always ask them to reach out to the community. This isn't a special carve out. That's part of the protocol. So that's not anything new. It's not a new component. Ms.
I am
Thurston?
not saying it's new, but was that imparted to the applicant when they got the package from the community board?
Yes, the answer is yes. Ms. Thurston?
Thanks, Lenny. In the interest of expediency, we're getting very late, folks. I'd like to just reiterate, this has all been discussed at the committee. Please consider coming. All of this context we've discussed so far was raised there, not to dismiss it, but that is the purpose of the committee meetings. And for newer folks, I just want to make sure people know the reason we provide these conditions is because if we just vote something down, if we specifically a liquor license, if we vote it down rather than approve with conditions, trust us, we often want to, it will likely be approved by the SLA. And that will mean it will do so without any of these conditions for community outreach or engagement or soundproofing, whatever those conditions are. So please note, when we choose to not take an action in the affirmative with conditions, we are often relinquishing our ability to even consider any of this until anything is up for renewal in 2 years. So context, thanks.
All right, so I think I've heard from enough board members on this motion. So the motion has been properly moved and seconded. We've had discussion. So at this point, I'm going to call the question. All in favor of the committee's recommendation with the noted conditions, please raise your hand or indicate aye.
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 Strong aye.
Jessica, you got everybody for the ayes?
I'm going to count the option.
Okay, got you. I didn't mean to catch you mid-bite. Any of those who are opposed, please indicate in the same manner.
Sid Meier, no.
Wait, hold on. Let me make sure that those who had their hands up, if you take your hands down, whether you had a question or if you voted in the affirmative, if you could just take your digital hand down. And this vote is for those who oppose the recommendation. So am I correct, Mr. Jordan? Your hand is up to oppose. Mr. Gus is the same?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Anyone else who opposes?
Zero Scott opposed.
And Sid Meier opposes.
And I see Barbara.
Yes, thank you.
Is there anyone abstaining? Lenny and Ernie, could you take your digital hand down for me? So I see Maisha is
Yes, so
abstaining.
you got me as opposed, and this is Esther.
Esther, you're opposed?
Yes.
Okay. Maisha, you're abstaining, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, motion passes.
Okay. Taya, when you draft a letter for me to respond to this motion, please, as we will with the next two items, please carve out in a separate line the conditions for approval.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. Next application is 110 Smith. I'll entertain a motion to accept the committee's recommendation. Ms. Zala Gringer, can I get a second?
No, I wasn't doing that.
Well, your hand was upside down.
I had a comment. Sorry.
What's the comment, Barbara?
Councilman Gordon, so moved.
I'm concerned about this application because we heard it over the
I
summer.
didn't get a motion yet, Barbara. Hold
Oh.
on, let me get the motion first. So for the purpose of the new members and just as a form of a refresher, I call for a motion, a second, and then there's a discussion. And in the discussion, you're not limited. You can ask the questions that you like, but it needs to go in that order. So for new members, that's how we'll flow. For seasoned members, that's a refresher. So let me do this again. I'll entertain a motion for 110 Smith.
So
And I think I heard Mr. Gordon make the motion. Do I have a second? Mr. Jordan. Is there any discussion on the motion? Ms. Allegringer?
Thank you, Chair. This application came before the executive committee over the summer, and it appeared that they had done very little of anything and had very little information to impart. They were told to come back to the HES committee, it seems to me they have not provided any new additional information, number one. Number two, 40 seats in this area sounds like an awful lot. Did the committee discuss with them at all about keeping it to no more than 25 or 30? I don't see them have, you said you had to go reach out to the committee and to the neighborhood, and the result is that they didn't reach out. So I'm very surprised that the committee approved this application.
Ms. Freibush?
Yes, I was at both meetings, the HES meeting and the executive, and I live nearby. So I can state that there unequivocally, there is not room for 40 chairs and 20 tables. It's a narrow sidewalk. And I asked specifically, were there also any of those gates, those metal gates going down to the basement vault? Because that also takes up room. And that's also a means of egress. And they said no. And in reality, there was. So that would take up more room. But they just, I saw it as they lied. They did not tell the truth about their knowledge of the community. Obviously, they didn't speak to people in the community. They weren't able to address that. I strongly hope that we vote no.
So tell me your hand is up because you have a question.
I do. I have a question. One is the question that was raised before about the reaching out. Are these conditions that we have put on them if we approve this going forward?
Yes, these are conditions that are.
And if we vote no, it goes forward to the liquor authority just as a no without the conditions that we want on it.
So it'll go with the result of the motion, but it'll also will include the conversation and the finer points like the conditions.
Okay, thank you. I'm not going to repeat what I said before.
Thank you for not repeating. I appreciate that. Any other discussion on the motion? Mr. Smith?
Yes, thanks. I did just want to clarify a couple points about the difference between the HES meeting and the executive committee meeting, in the sense that at the executive committee, the attorney only was present there, and there was no applicant who came with him. And at the HES meeting, the applicant attended and answered questions about the establishment. And at the executive committee meeting, the attorney who was there by himself, and I think there's several points of discussion in this application, and it definitely isn't the whole story because there's a lot of things to talk about here, is the fact that the attorney didn't seem to be doing a great job on behalf of his client. And I would hate to necessarily fault a client just for that reason, but I would also say that, we have to take the full circumstances into account, which there were more than that. And as it was at the executive, the attorney was unable to tell us where any of the outdoor seating was. You would think any attorney should know that about something they're presenting, but he was unable to do that, and that was the primary reason it was moved over. The attorney that when the applicant came, he was able to explain where the outdoor seating was located. It's on the street. It's the 20 tables with the 40 seats, and that was the outcome of the meeting, was that discussion and that seating. So the motion that stands before us now is 20 tables and 40 seats out on the street, in addition to the conditions, which is the applicant is going to have to provide proof that he's engaged with not just the neighbors within his building, but also of the surrounding community. And another aspect of this too was that this application came in with a 1 a.m. closing time for the outdoor seating, and we shortened that closing time to 10 p.m. And I think that's a really important condition, because I wouldn't think it was consistent with the surrounding neighborhood to have outdoor seating going all the way till 1 a.m.
All right, we're going to take the last comment before I call the vote, Mr. Flournoy.
Yeah, I just have one question. Were any residents present at the meeting at Hess?
Well, aside from, I believe Ms. Feibush has stated that she's a resident and but not of the building itself, no.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so Tay, if you could take the screen down so I can go back to vote fight. Thank you. Bill, can you take your hand down for me, please? Thanks. So all in favor of the committee's recommendation, either raise your hand or indicate aye.
Aye.
Sid Meier, aye.
Aye, Latrell Marcel.
Okay, great. Let me give it a minute so everyone can take their digital hand down as we go into the next process.
Victor, aye.
Okay, great. Those who are opposed, please follow the same protocol.
Zero Scholar, no.
Okay,
I
great.
have 4. I have Barbara, Mr. Jordan, Cyril, and Esther. Did I miss anyone?
Betty.
Betty. Thanks, Betty.
And Nick.
Detner.
And Jonathan.
Sabrina.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
So
Okay,
Nick,
put your digital hands up if you're
wait,
opposed, folks.
So it's Nick,
Carrera.
Jonathan, yep, Jonathan Rogers, and Sabrina Rezi. Am I correct?
Got it.
All right, and then wait, now there's some other digital hands because I see Douglas as well.
All right.
Okay, great, thank you. And then now I'm going to give it a minute for everybody to take their digital hand down. Okay, is there anyone abstaining?
I, Sam Johnson.
So
I'm going to abstain.
Sam is abstaining, and so is Mr. Augustus.
Jeff Ryan.
Jeff is
abstaining.
Jeff Ryan is
Abstaining.
Abstaining. I got you. Abstaining. Okay. Anyone else? Maisha is abstaining as well. Anyone else? Thank you. All right, everybody, please take all digital indications down for me. And now the last item is 147 Front Street. So I'll entertain a motion to accept the committee's recommendation for 147. I'm sorry, I think I said 187. I meant to say 147 Front Street. And to be clear, the vote was in favor unanimously, 6 in favor, 0 abstentions, 0 opposed. So Maisha, you seconding them? Are you making a motion? Okay, I need you to take your digital hand down.
Housing Warden, make for the motion.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second, Mr. Okay.
Okay, so I have Carlton and Mr. Jordan again. Okay, great. Tay, I know you're being helpful, but you have to take that down for me so I can see all the, there you go, thank you. So any discussion on the motion? Seeing none or hearing none, all in favor of the committee's recommendation, let's do it again. There you go, perfect. Either raise your hand or come off mute and say aye.
Aye, Carlton Gordon.
Sid Meier, aye.
I, Sam Johnson.
I, Latrell Marcel.
Aye, Jeffrey Ryan.
I, Maisha Morales.
We appreciate it, but y'all don't have to say all your names. We'll count the opposed.
All right, so let me give it a minute so everybody can take their hand down. See two people, yeah, two people still have a digital hand up. I need them to come down. Okay, great. Anyone who's opposed? See, Betty is in opposition. Carolyn Hubbard coming and Murray's in opposition. Linda Jordan's in opposition. Okay, great. You can take your hands down. All right, anybody abstaining?
I'm going to abstain, John. I mean, Lenny.
Yeah, I know you meant. It's cool.
Okay.
Jessica, you got it?
All set.
Whew. All right. Thank you everyone for voting. That should conclude the report for the Health, Environment, and Social Services Committee. Correct, Mr. Smith?
That's correct. Thank
Okay.
you all.
So I'm going to make an adjustment in the agenda, and I apologize to Mr. Smith, but I also want to be mindful of the fact that we do have some electeds in person. And so I'm going to deviate a bit, and I'm going to thank the electeds for participating in person, for sitting through this process. But I want to call in this order those who are here, and then we'll hear from the representatives later. But I want to call on Senator Jabari Brisport, Assemblywoman Joanne Simon, and Councilmember Lincoln Restler in that order, if they're still on the line. Assemblywoman Simon, we'll go with you.
I forgot what I was going to say.
It sounded like something like great job, community board too. That's what I think you were going to say, right?
It's like, God. Anyway, so it's been a long night. I just wanted to tell you about a couple of things that we're doing coming up. One is we have another Java with Joanne on September 30th, which is at Ovenley on Court Street, which is a new place and has backyard space. So it's very COVID friendly. On the 6th, we're doing our flu shot clinic, which is at 83 Amity, which is, as you may remember, the emergency entrance for Litch, which is now NYU, whatever. And then on November 18th, we have our mammogram van. And so we're encouraging people to reach out to us, either call us or email us about setting up an appointment for the mammogram van, for example, or the flu shot clinic. And then the Java with Joanne, we have a separate RSVP form, which we can send people to sign up. And as you know, these are just sort of free form kinds of things. We like to have a sense of the number of people coming if we can. And then the other thing is obviously, you know, we're starting to work on preparing for the next legislative session. And of course, we're always looking to hear what people's concerns are. So please reach out. You know, the governor just signed the class size bill. As you may know, was quite controversial in some circles. I think everybody knows and agrees that smaller class size actually helps our kids learn. I was the original sponsor of the original class size bill, so I take a little pride in the fact that we were able to get this over the finish line and signed by the governor. And also, you know, that we had passed at the end of session, or actually we went back after the Supreme Court ruled on the concealed carry and passed another bill, which was just challenged and dismissed on the grounds of standing. And so far, so good on ensuring that statute will be upheld going forward. It really is something that protects people from people bringing guns on conveyances. And if you have a concealed carry permit, you should know how to use a gun and you should have been sufficiently trained. And so we want for people who are, you know, law-abiding gun owners, as they say, to actually be trained, know how to use their guns and be able to take care of them carefully and safely. And that's really our biggest concern, is protecting the public. So I'm happy to answer any questions about those. If you have any particular issues you want to raise, I'm happy to hear them. My guess is that Lenny will tell you no and tell you to call my office instead because it's late. So Lenny, I can't hear you.
I said I would never do that. I appreciate you sticking through this. And I think it's a prime example of, you know, the history you have and what led you to the point that you are now, because you've always been a grassroots person. You appreciate what this process is like. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And
So with
thank you
that-
all for serving on the community board and going through these meetings. I know that they can be challenging at times. So thank you all for your service. Bye-bye.
So actually, Joanne,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm getting too familiar. Assemblywoman Simon, I think Barbara Zalagringa has a question.
Okay.
Thank you. Hi, Joanne. Thank you, Lenny and Joanne. I just want to know, is there any movement afoot to amend the public meetings law, either for hybrid proceeding meetings or to, you know, do it on Zoom solely?
Well, we did pass a bill. You know, there was some in the budget that extended this for a bit. And of course, whenever there is, my interpretation is that whenever there's an emergency declared by the governor, that the open public meetings law will admit of a hybrid meeting, for example, or a virtual meeting. Now, monkeypox, she's declared another public emergency because of monkeypox, which you know, is not spread airborne in the way that COVID was, but in any event, I think it's kosher to do the hybrid meeting or the virtual meeting. I'm going to double check that tomorrow because the board, you know, postponed, and we want to make sure we have that. But I know that we passed a bill that actually set up a process going forward for because different municipalities and boards and whatnot have different requirements, et cetera, that there will be a period of time where we will extend the ability to do hybrid meetings. And within that period of time, those various entities will make determinations for themselves. And then they will have made those determinations. So I don't know that the governor has signed that bill yet. So that's why I need to double check that.
Well, I was told it's been extended now because of polio emergency.
That we did that one to
But
another.
it sounds like there's no real sentiment to make this permanent, that we could
Well,
have hybrid meetings.
I would say that I would say that there is some sentiment to do that. And of course, polio is communicable in an airborne way. So polio is almost more likely to be a problem, for example, just because of the method of transmission, the monkeypox. But you know, there's a lot of us that would like to be able to make these things permanent. On the other hand, you know, there are all sorts of entities with all sorts of sizes of groups that, you know, there might be 6 people on the board and it may not make a difference if they're hybrid kind of thing. So a lot of people don't like it. We did pass this one bill, which allows it to progress and for people to set their own rules. But I would say that it's also within the fact that whenever there is an emergency, a health emergency, for example, that the ability to do virtual would trump that. But I really want to double check the bill and get back to you because I don't want to be making it up as I go along.
So
Thank you so
Assemblywoman Simon,
much.
let me just jump in for a second. And this is probably for everyone's information. The board office has been diligent about staying on top of when we are allowed to meet virtually or not, because if we're not, that means we have to have an in-person facility. So we stay on top of that. That's number one. And so every time that we are providing a virtual meeting, it's because we received the authorization to do so. Assemblywoman, do you have time for one more question?
Sure. As long as it's an easy one.
Well, I'm gonna throw the curveball to Doug. I see him smiling, so that's a
I'll
good sign.
I'll try. Thank you, Chairman Singletary. I appreciate it. Hi, Assemblywoman. Thank you for taking the question. Just a real quick question regarding the Affordable Housing Commission. Any movement on that? I know affordable housing is very important in our district, and I know it was part of the state budget, and you know, we're running out of time in terms of appointing members and getting them to do their work before the next budget cycle. So it's September. Just curious if there's any movement on that.
So the Affordable Housing Commission or DHCR?
It was the Affordable Housing Commission that was going to look at good cause eviction and property taxes and all that, and all those good items.
Yes, well, one thing is I'm not on the housing committee, so probably didn't register in quite the same way with me, but pretty much nothing happens during the summer, I would say, those things, right? So now that, we're getting back into session, they will probably, my guess is that the commission, because I'm not a part of that, would have some meetings, but I wouldn't necessarily know about them unless I ask. So I'll see if my staff can follow up and see whether we've learned anything about that, and then we could be able to report back in some fashion.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. We appreciate you staying through, and we would not be offended if you disappear. So not a problem.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right. Have a good evening. I do want to announce that Senator Bridgeport was on. However, he was in his office and needed to catch the train. So he's in transit right now. We all know that Senator Bridgeport is excellent at attending in person and always has an update. And he will look to provide information to the board office and will provide us with more details as he's settled. But let me take this opportunity, and I don't want to put her on the spot, but let me ask Maisha Morales if she has any information she wants to share on behalf of Senator Bridgeport.
No, currently I don't. I'm here.
Okay, great.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. And so I know that there are representatives that are on the line, but I'm going to ask you to wait and let us continue with the matters at hand, and we will make an exception. Oh, I'm sorry. Councilmember Restler was able to join back. He had to step off for a minute, but he's back. So let me turn the floor over to Councilmember Lincoln Restler.
Thank you so much, Chair Singletary. It is always an honor to get to join the good folks at CB2. Without CB6 tonight, I got to join almost the entire meeting. So I felt like I was a member again. So it's good to be back with you. Good to be with you all. Hope everyone had a great summer. We had an action-packed weekend this weekend, especially great day on Montague Street. We did a chalk art for the open street on Montague from Henry to Clinton that was awesome. We had dozens and dozens of kids out there. We distributed 50 rain barrels and I think 7,000 pounds of processed compost to folks in the neighborhood. So it was a big success for a kind of climate themed day. We also gave away hundreds of backpacks just on the border of CB2 and CB6, mostly to residents in Gowanus and Wyckoff Gardens to welcome families back to school. Wanted to share an announcement that we made at the end of last week. Part of the budget investments that we prioritized this year is that our office and Brooklyn Bridge Park Development Corporation are jointly funding an expansion of the Brooklyn Bridge Park Conservancy's Environmental Education Center. They do a phenomenal job serving kids from all over Brooklyn. And now we're going to be able to double the size and capacity of that center to teach our young kids about the ecological history of the Brooklyn waterfront. So that should be great. We took the Deputy Commissioner for Capital Projects from the Parks Department on a tour of the promenade this week, where we have just had really unacceptable conditions, where it's a trip hazard almost everywhere you walk. We have DOT repair crews out right now helping us to replace some of the worst sections of the promenade. And we've got additional work happening through Columbus Day that we're confident are going to address some of the most problematic conditions. And we're looking at identifying additional ways to address every individual condition that we have across the promenade. But don't hesitate to reach out to us if we can be helpful there. I joined Chair Singletary to tour 1 Hoyt Street, the new single adult homeless shelter downtown that is opening imminently. We're expecting move-ins in the days ahead. They're doing a gradual ramp up there of the population. We have set up a community advisory board, and if anyone is interested in being a part of that, please let us know. We'll see if there's a capacity to add folks, but we want to make sure that everybody has information to be able to contact the shelter directly if they have any issues or concerns or questions. And our office is, of course, ready to help in any way that we can. I wanted to echo, I think it was Bill's presentation on the Borough Hall Farmers Market, the Borough Hall Holiday Market that is going to be happening later this year. We were strongly supportive and worked with the vendor to help make this happen along with the Borough President's office. I think it's a great thing to see the space, at what I hope we can rename from Columbus Plaza, and appreciate the community board too passed a resolution, I think, on the statue in the last year or two, and echo that sentiment. So in that space that I hope we can rename soon, I'm really excited to see it activated, and I think it's an area that we could all do a lot to creatively contribute to kind of making the most of an underutilized public space. Those were some of the key updates on our end. I guess I should also note things are moving ahead swiftly at 90 Sand Street. The breaking ground supportive housing development, we're expecting move-ins imminently there as well, and happy to share information out with the community board. We've set up a community advisory board for that site as well, and they should be having their first meeting in the next couple weeks. If I can ever help with anything, please let me know. But fortunately, I've got a just terrific community rep who covers our covers CB2 for us, and Arvin Sinwani, who's on here with us. So if we can ever be of assistance, please don't ever hesitate to call or email us, district33@council.nyc.gov. And as always, I really want to thank Lenny and the entire team at CB2 for the great work you guys do. Really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, council member. Do you have time for maybe 2 questions?
Happily.
Or maybe no questions?
Oh no, I'm happy to. Oh, no questions.
No,
Even
nobody wanted to
then,
ask you anything. They wanted you to say good night. I don't know.
Lincoln, this is
been a long-
Carlton Gordon. Just
so Carlton
just to
Gordon
say,
has a
I
question
enjoyed your recent Daily News Sunday article. You had an interesting thing about the homeless, and I said, "Oh, Lincoln's in the Sunday Daily News," and it was a interesting essay about how to deal with the homeless.
Well, I really appreciate that, Carlton. It's a major priority of mine. I was disturbed by the mayor's comments today that we should be reassessing the right to shelter. As New Yorkers, I think we are empathetic and compassionate, and it is critically important that we do whatever we can to support the most vulnerable in our community. And I'm very concerned about the street homeless conditions that we have in downtown Brooklyn. And starting later this month, we are convening key stakeholders who work with street homeless communities across Brooklyn to come together to try to do more proactive engagement with street homeless New Yorkers to try and help connect them to services, to treatment, and most of all, to shelter and housing. One of the things that we've been trying to do at 90 Sands, we'll see if we're ultimately successful, is to try to make some referrals of some of the local street homeless folks in our community to the permanent supportive housing that is there. Because, as there was a survey, the largest survey of its kind in New York City that was conducted earlier this year, and the number one answer for how to address public safety is housing. That was what most New Yorkers said, and it couldn't be more true. Housing is the foundation to stability in somebody's life. And we want to do everything we can to try to help support the homeless and improve the conditions in shelters and connect more people to truly affordable housing solutions.
Thanks, Lincoln.
Thank you.
Ms. Peterson, did you have a question?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to withdraw my comments, and I'll speak with my friend, Councilman Restler, at a later date about 90 Sand Street. I'm
Wonderful.
interested to
I look
know
forward
about
to
that.
it.
Yes.
Great. We will follow up, Ms. Peterson. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you, council member. Appreciate you getting off, getting back on. I appreciate that.
I'm always happy to be with CB2. Have a great night, everybody.
You too. All right. So I have 7:55. Okay, great. Next item for committee action is transportation and public safety. I'm going to turn it over to the chair, Sidney Meyer.
Well, good evening, everyone. From it's 5:30 in the morning here, so I want to say quickly that I'm going to have I want to thank the leadership of the committee, Esther and John, and I also specifically want to thank Taya, who took time out of her summer to host a special meeting. We did a special meeting over the summer because we wanted to bring to head a number of issues that we've been working on for 8 months. So we didn't want it to be voted on at the executive board, but wanted to bring it to this meeting in September. So, we worked hard on this. There's a compromise. What I would ask people to do when they hear this, it is a compromise. And that if it's very clear to me that if the community doesn't get behind the compromise, there's a good chance that DOT is gonna do whatever they want without listening to what the community concerns are. So on that note, I'm going to turn it over to Esther if she wants to read the Willoughby action report or paraphrase the Willoughby action report. And if she doesn't want to do that, then John can do that as well. John Quinn.
Well, I don't have it in front of me, but I know the compromise was
No, but there's an action report. There's the action report.
okay.
The action report.
I don't have it in front of me.
John, do you have it? Is John Quint on?
Yeah, I have it, but, and, one second.
So while Mr. Quinn.
Yeah, I mean, the action report was on the website. And what we said in the report was on the board website, and like all the other action reports are there to be read. We the committee took the position that the length of the open streets from Washington Park from the edge of Fort Greene all the way to Hall was too long, and that the block between Claremont and Hall, do I have that right? I don't have it in front of me because I can't go back and forth.
It's Washington and Hall.
Right, so that the last block that ends at Hall should be eliminated from the open street, that the open street should only be from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., not 24/7 as it is now, and that the signage, thank you, that the not be Hall Street shortened by bounded at Washington and not Hall, so that the block between Washington and Hall should not be included in the open street, that it should be only 8 to 8 as opposed to 24/7 now, and that the new signage be installed and be consistent at every entrance, which would mean at every block, to make it clear that residents, emergency vehicles, dropping off any for-hire vehicles, including accessoride, that have to drop off anyone to their curb would be permitted, because the signage was non-uniform and not consistent with other open streets. So that was the position that the committee took, and the vote was 7-5-0.
I'd like to say something. This is Esther.
Well, there has to be a motion. There has to be a motion first, Esther.
All right.
Well, actually, that's not applicable to the vice chair. So
Okay,
since
go ahead.
Esther's the vice chair, she does have the opportunity to make a comment. So proceed, Esther.
To say that if we don't have a compromise, that DOT will do what they want anyway, it's ridiculous, because they do what they want anyway. So, I mean, people talk about open streets like, oh, they so wonderful, why wouldn't you like it? But the way they approach it is all a lie. Why would you need a survey that's only in the positive? And the only way you could write something negative if you write a narrative, and that's not being counted. You see, that whole approach is a lie. The other time we was on, Kyle Gorman said they reached out to the churches and everybody was down with open streets, and all the churches, every one of them said nobody talked to them. We went to the precinct council meeting. The head of the precinct council in 88 said, I told them that open streets would be no good. Nobody, it's like, he didn't say that, okay? The other day we heard that when we was on for the special meeting, some guy got on and said, oh, it's at least 30 people out here now for open streets. And the young lady sent her husband out there and took pictures. It was one person walking on the open streets. We've been asking for the signage to be changed 4 months and they haven't done it. So now we're supposed to believe that they're going to just accept this. And then tomorrow in the Brooklyn paper, it'll read, Community Board 2 approves open streets. See, that means like we wanted it. And the community does not want it. So that's what I have to say.
All right, so with that, let me entertain a motion to accept the committee's recommendation.
So
moved.
So moved.
So Mr. Gordon, and second by who?
I'll second.
Okay, Daughtry.
Daughtry.
Any discussion on the motion? Now, let me be clear. This motion and this discussion is limited to CB2 members only. So if you are not a board member of Community Board 2, you don't get an opportunity to speak here, but you are not limited. You can put your comments in the chat. And so I need to keep this to the board members only because only board members are voting. Mr. Augustus. Ernie, you're on mute, I think.
I would like to urge the full board to vote no, to vote this proposal down or this recommendation down. This compromise, the reason I say this compromise actually begs the question. It avoids the issue about the origin of the open street to begin with. Basically, you're asking. Basically, you're saying that if I throw a pebble into the lake, there's no ripple effect. There is still a ripple effect. It's still rippling down Willoughby Avenue. It's still rippling on Myrtle Avenue. It's still rippling. Basically, you're asking the community board to engage in sort of like Sophie's choice. Which baby do I sacrifice? When the women on Willoughby Avenue organized, they didn't organize just to get a block removed so they could have access to Willoughby Walk Co-op. They were addressing the entire block. I don't want to be in the position of determining what community neighbor I should sacrifice or to support. It doesn't address the issue. The issue is the disenfranchisement of the community by a bureaucracy. I worked in a bureaucracy. We all worked in a bureaucracy. You have a bureaucracy that is making legislation. That is unheard of. When DOT says you have no right to make a comment, to make an observation, to do anything, the board never asserted any sort of dispositive authority. The board said we're still advisory. Advisory is very important. It just does not address the issue. It puts neighbor against neighbor. I'm not going to say, okay, I'll roll it back one block, and then I have to address what happened to the First Baptist Church at the other end of Willoughby Avenue. What happened to PS20 and teachers who are now trying to return to school to find parking. I'd rather be clear and unequivocal and to the point. Whether DOT go ahead, that's on DOT. I don't think we have to, because we were not at the table. Whatever deals were made by DOT and the Fulton Fab and transportation alternative, that's their deal. But don't ask us or don't ask the community to affirm it. So I would urge the community board, the full board, to vote this recommendation down.
Ms. Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. I first would like to say that I believe that this community board has, as long as I've served on this community board, has always taken into consideration fairness and equitableness. Even when there have been times that people seem to have been left out of the conversations on whatever the scenario was. We have always been fair. I had always hoped that with the open streets situation, the fairness and equitableness would continue. It seems like this has been the biggest fight, and yes, Mr. Augustus, a fight from neighbor to neighbor. And we have come to this point, and the compromise, it's always great to have a compromise, but I would have thought that the compromise would be a bit different. Don't have a problem with the compromise, but I was hoping for a better compromise than 12 hours a day in terms of the open street. So one, the second thing I want to say is I appreciate that it should not go all the way to Hall Street. It should come up to Washington Avenue. I think there could have been a better compromise there. I'm also concerned, I continue to be concerned about accessoride, people being picked up by accessoride, EMS, NYPD. And I think those, I'm not sure that those things have been fully thought out among the community members. And we could only hope that it's not us or our family members that come against that issue when we need that emergency. Because it's always, as long as it's okay or happening to someone else, then it's okay. And I would have liked to have seen those things come into play and under more consideration as to exactly what that looks like. Yes, the church is a greater part of our community, and when the church hasn't been part of the conversation, or it's been stated that they were and they were not, that too is concerning because it's a level of dismissal, perhaps, of those persons from French-speaking Baptist Church as an example. So I would say that I feel a little disappointed because it should be a better compromise for the benefit of the entire community and the safety and the wellness of all. And I'm not sure that that is what this compromise brought out. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Howell. Brian?
Thank you.
You got an echo.
Sorry about that.
Still got an echo.
Sorry about that. You know, I'm kind of conflicted on this motion, but I wanted to just go over what DOT told us in the meeting. They did a survey of 2,048 people, 2,048, not petitions, a survey. So unlike petitions, they solicited all opinions. And the survey found that 73% of people, about 1,500 people, feel safer with the open street on Willoughby, and about 21% of people feel less safe. And that's important because it tells us for every person that now feels less safe on Willoughby, 3.5 people feel safer. And the survey found that 44% of people walk to Willoughby Avenue, 28% of people biked, 16% drove their own cars, 10% of people were driven by someone else. And that means for everyone who drove or was driven to Willoughby Avenue, 2 3/4 times as many people walked or biked. And the last factoid I'll share from the survey is that 1,687, 82.4% of the survey takers said they live near Willoughby Avenue. But just because DOT's survey shows overwhelming support for the open street, including from its neighbors, doesn't mean that you have to support it or even like it. As community board members, we are tasked with serving the community, even when that means standing in the face of public opinion. I support the open street, but if you think the open street is bad, you should vote against it, even though you think the best measure of public opinion we have shows that most people support it. It's quite all right to have a minority opinion. It doesn't mean we're wrong. I have a lot of them. But we don't need to contort public opinion in order to justify having dissenting opinions. Most of the people I know like the open street, but that's because those are the people that I associate with. And just because most of the people we know feel the same way as we do, that doesn't mean that everybody in the district or everybody in the neighborhood feels the same way. You know, each of us is appointed to this board to voice a particular perspective, but none of us are representative of the district as a whole. So thank you very much.
Mr. Flanoy.
Thank you, Chair Singletary. I was kind of curious because the votes seem to be split within the committee, and I'm starting to hear why it was. But if the chair can explain to me, give a little background on what the other individuals who voted against this, what their feelings were of the position, I'd appreciate that.
Okay, well, you know, that's difficult sometimes. Some of the people who voted are against any open street. Some of the people who voted against it felt that the closing of any of the open street we should have left it originally the way it was. So the five people represent a cross section, some who want no open street and some who want the street open, you know, open as DOT had proposed it. I can't give you within that five what the numbers of that are.
So let me ask those who've already asked the question, take your hand down, the digital hand, please.
Oh, sorry.
Thomas.
Yes, so I was at this committee meeting. I am not on the committee, so I wasn't able to speak there. But what I noticed was the two main groups were those who, I'm referring to speakers from the public. The main groups were people who supported the open street as is, and there were people who were opposed to the open street entirely. At least that's my perception of the two main opinions. There was no discussion of reducing the hours to exactly 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. before the motion was filed. That seemed to kind of be an arbitrary motion. DOT was not requesting that the committee offer their opinion about what hours should be prescribed for the open street. DOT was not requesting that the committee prescribe what segments of Willoughby Avenue that the open street should be on. I have to say there wasn't any traffic study done to see what would happen if they were to close that one segment. How would that negatively impact the residents on that one block? So I'm opposed to this motion as it's presented. I think it's basically an anti-open street motion because it's reducing the hours and the length of the street. I'm going to vote no on it if we take the vote as is, but I am filing a motion to amend the motion to strike points 1 and 3 from this motion so we can have a clean up and down vote on whether we support the open street.
So Thomas, just so you know, that won't be acted upon until we go to the first stage.
That's fair.
All right. Rachel.
Yes, hi. I think I would like to vote no on the committee's decision, just because to me this seems like it seems like there's a lot of discussion from a vocal minority that is claiming that the majority that has spoken is somehow like that result that the majority voted for or has expressed their opinion on is not accurate. And to me, that just seems very dismissive of everybody who took the time to fill out the survey. Like, what's the point of having these surveys if then we can then claim that the results are not actually indicative of what the community thinks? It just seems very conspiracy oriented. And so I'm gonna absolutely be voting no on this motion.
Mr. Quinn.
Thank you. A couple of points. We have to remember that the committees discussed this issue starting in December of last year, I think. We've had, as the report showed, We had lots of during many of our meetings, issues were raised about it. There were people who were absolutely opposed and there were people who were absolutely in favor. We didn't, if we took no action, then the open streets exactly as it is, from Hall to the park, 24/7 with bad signage is going to remain, though maybe the signage, DOT may have heard our plea about making the signage uniform so that people can know they can, those people who live on the block can drive down. Those people who have deliveries on the block can have them come to the door. Those people who call Ubers or Lyfts or Accessoride can have the drivers come to their address. But if we took no action, there would be 24/7 Hall to the park and possibly better signage. If we took a vote completely against it, it's still going to be Hall to the park 24/7, because as somebody has already said and other people have said in this discussion and in many other discussions, DOT will do what they want. They will listen if we give them a reasonable compromise. Otherwise, it's going to be 24/7. And all of those in favor of a 24/7 Hall to the park, open streets, are going to win by default. And if people believe that something should be done so that DOT gets the sense of this community board that we do not like what is there now, maybe it'll change. The council member, as far as I know, is completely in support of what is there now. And she has been. And she may be moved by the vote of this committee, of this board, to support the committee's action. But if it's voted down and we get Mr. Hughes's alternate motion, which is to approve it and 24/7, and if that's voted down and then we get a motion to disapprove the entire thing, we're going to be left with what's there now. As a person who voted for the motion and support for compromise, I think that everybody should vote for it and hope that we can get a better open streets. For those of you who think it's 100% perfect, vote it down, and then we'll have a vote up and down on each, on approving it or disapproving it. But I'm not sure you're going to get a good definitive answer out of that. And the result will be DOT will do whatever it wants. Thank you.
Emily?
Thank you very much. As many people on this committee know, I'm like a data junkie person, and I take issue with the idea that there was a survey, people had a chance to fill it out. There's lots of comments in the chat, but I think we have to be careful. There are people in our community board that don't even know that there is a community board too. They don't even know we have these meetings. So I think just the idea that only those that cared filled out a survey. And I don't know enough, and I don't have an opinion either way on the open streets. I think the community should decide. But again, I think that even those of us that have the 2 hours and 20 minutes to sit on this call are very privileged in a way that most people are not running around looking for surveys to take in their community. So I'm done. Thank you, Chairman Singletary.
Thank you. Can I just ask again, if you already asked a question, take your digital hand down for me. Sid, I see your digital hand is still up. You have a question? You're on mute. You're on mute, Sid.
As the chair, I would like to make a comment at the end. So when just before the vote, I would like the privilege of making a final comment.
You can make it now.
Well, obviously, I should have said this before. The Board Hill Association does have a number of open streets that it supports. We have made changes, and I need to do that because there's an ethical issue about it. We made changes of those in response to the community, and it's been shortened and changed. But we've also, listened to everybody over the relatively long time that this has been going on. I'm aware that, and I've spoken to the council member, that the council member generally supports open streets, but she also wants to hear from the community and would be open to a compromise. If we vote, and that's what we've done. We've listened to the community, both sides of the community, and we've heard that there's a segment of the community who wants no open streets there, and we've heard a segment of the community who wants the open street 24/7. We've heard all these issues. We've taken the time to participate on this, to speak with the council member, to speak with DOT. And that's why I said at the beginning that we're suggesting a compromise. I want to say one other thing. The city council has voted to have open streets be a permanent program. And by doing that, that is your representatives spoke that the policy of the city is to support open streets in general, but not in a specific one. This is a specific open street that came about as a result of the pandemic, that is being used, that the community board was not approached to comment on it. And if they had approached to comment at the beginning, we would have made comments along the lines that I think the committee voted for, that the both segments of the communities, all segments of the communities need to be heard on this, that the compromise represents a good step towards that continued communication. And I also agree with John and a few other people. We vote this down, there will be no reason why the DOT should make any changes, that whether the council member or not would support those changes is clear. If this gets voted down, you will not see any change on the open street on Willoughby. And
Right.
To that, I committed to vote.
All right, so I'm gonna wrap this up. And those who've already had a chance to speak, I heard you. Those who are not board members, I'm not gonna hear you. I'm gonna keep this to the board. But
Chair Singletary, I live on Willoughby Avenue.
I know you do, John, but I'm unfortunately, I'm gonna have to hold you on this one because I need to have
Chair
a certain amount of-
Singletary, I never
John,
asked for
John, I'm
anything.
not gonna do this with you. Don't, thank you. So, I'm gonna call this to a vote for all in favor. Please follow the protocol that we followed earlier. Either raise your hand digitally or indicate aye of the committee's recommendation.
Aye.
Can you remind us what the recommendation was? Sorry, following all that conversation. I'm so sorry.
So the committee's recommendation was to.
I'll look in the
approve-
minutes. Sorry, thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm at the agenda.
You got them? Thank you, Tam.
Lenny, would you like me to do a roll call for this, or do you want to just go by hand?
No, this
I don't-
isn't applicable for a roll call.
Okay. So if your hands are up, you're voting yes. If you are voting yes, please use your digital hand because I'm writing these down.
Can you tell them what yes means?
Yes means you're supporting the committee's recommendation.
The compromise, okay,
The committee's recommendation, yeah.
okay.
So right now, according to the count, we have 24 raised hands, digital raised hands.
Yeah. We have to, I'm sorry, I'm writing everyone's name. We have to align the names. Sabrina. Kate. Okay, all right, we can go to the other names. and I'll-
So I need everybody take your hand down, please.
It's taking me a second to do that.
It's okay, you can just do it, it's cool.
All right.
All right, great. Those opposed of the committee's recommendation, please raise your hand. Right, I show 7 opposed digitally. Carlton, are you going to say something?
No.
Okay, so I have 8 opposed.
Me too.
Okay, great. Please take your hand down.
Maisha, can you lower your,
Those who are
There you go.
abstaining, please raise your hand.
Those are,
I'm sorry, it's, for some reason, it's not working when I press the tab.
But you're pressing for abstaining, right?
No,
were-
I oppose it.
Okay, got it. So right now I
Mr.
see
Jordan?
Mr. Jordan.
All right,
All right,
motion carries.
okay. All right,
Thank
Sid,
you.
what's your next item?
I didn't
This is-
vote. I'm abstaining.
Well, I already asked for abstentions, so.
Yeah, I was trying to put the hand up. I don't know that it came up.
Okay,
I was sitting,
So Denise is abstaining, just so I'm clear. Is anyone else abstaining? I know we have Ms. Peterson. Is anyone else abstaining?
okay.
So it's just Mr. Jordan and Ms. Peterson, correct? Okay. Thank you. All right, so what's your next item?
hey, Taya, could you put up the second part of the motion, please? Second part of the actual report.
Recommendation to approve Shared Street, DOT Shared Street on Gates between Vanderbilt and Clinton. Does not include plaza proposal between Fulton and Vanderbilt. So Sid, just so I'm clear, is this the item that DOT presented back in June?
Yes.
Okay, all right, just wanted to be clear.
Yeah, now this, and then this was not as extensive issue. The first issue of the shared street on Gates was brought up in June, and then when we had the meeting in over the summer, that was significantly changed from the original, but this was a relatively quick turnaround where on the shared street section of it.
Sid, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say it again.
Hold on, Esther, hold on. Go ahead, Sid.
And it also, so it changed rapidly over the summer. There wasn't as an extensive history with the committee on this one because it was a relatively new came up in June, and then it was modified at the meeting in over the summer, and it changed dramatically. There wasn't as much community input on this. There was community, and as you can see, the committee voted 8-4-0 for, this is only for the shared streets. It's not for the triangle, because the triangle was voted down by the committee. So this is the only is the shared street section. All right. So it's not the plaza, it's only the shared section that is on Gates between Fulton and Vanderbilt.
All right, so before I call
Wait
the
a minute.
motion, before I call the motion, I'm going to hear from the vice chair of the committee as well, because I think she has a comment she wants to make. Esther?
DOT in June said that they wanted to make Gates between Clinton and Vanderbilt a one-way street. Okay? It was never presented to us really at all. And then in August, when we had the special meeting, they said they want to make it a shared street. We had no presentation. We don't know what it's going to look like. And yet we took a vote on a shared street, which we had no input before. We was not discussing this since June. We had this, it was first a one-way. They was going to make it a one-way. You can go back to the minutes. And now it's a shared street. Okay? And there was no I asked you at the committee, Sid, should we let DOT present this so we could see what we voting on, how it's going to look? And we had no presentation on this. Okay, there already
we-
is a bike corral on Gates Avenue between Vanderbilt and Clinton. There's several bikes of corrals around this whole neighborhood. We don't even know what it's going to look like, how many parking spots is going to be taken away. We know nothing. Just like, okay, I'm not going to go there because we already voted on that, but we did not have a presentation on this.
Could I interject?
Actually, no, Ernie, I just wanted to hear from the chair and co-chair. So I'll entertain a recommendation to accept the committee's, I'll entertain a motion to accept the committee recommendation. Ms. Gelbs, can I get a second?
Second.
A second.
Daughtry? All right, is there any discussion on the motion? Ernie?
Yes, I will urge the board to vote this motion down. What this full board is lacking that the Transportation Committee members do have is the history. And you have to be grounded in the history. This issue about Gates Avenue between Vanderbilt and Clinton Avenue, it morphed. Originally, what DOT presented and everybody was jumping up and down about was closing the slip and making it plaza. They pulled back on that. Then they decided to, and there was no rationale given as to why they wanted to make Gates Avenue a one-way, and then take away parking, at least 20 parking spots, and then add some bike corral at the next in August, and that was never discussed. Here's the background. In August, at the day of that special meeting, Sid gets an email from DOT at the 11th hour announcing, oh, we changed our mind and you'll submit a revised schematic. Now we're going to have we're not going to convert Gates Avenue into a one-way. We're now going to keep it a two-way. But now we're going to have a shared street, right? What they gave the committee, and what the committee voted on was a schematic. You can't, what I did, I went to that site, and I stood on it 2 days, Monday and today, and I observed the road condition. I observed the traffic mechanicals and the traffic lights and the turning lane for an hour. I about traffic turn left and right to left, and then but you have no vision. You can't even visualize it. I took some photos, but the photo doesn't even, and I sent them to the board office. But I realized something else. Traffic is not static, Traffic is have to be in real time. You got to see the operation in real time to see what the impact is. What DOT should do, and the board should be not be insulted by this.
So
Go
Ernie,
back.
Ernie, I need you to wrap this up.
Okay, yeah, DOT, we should vote this down. As DOT want to come back, have them make a realistic presentation in real time, so the committee and this full board can see the road condition, and before they make a vote on something that they can't even envision. I've never seen a crime photo outline, about the body. It's there. They give you, how insulting could that be? And I'm gonna wrap it up. I walked around my neighborhood. I took photos. I got tons of them of bike corral in Clinton Hill, Fort Greene that are on the curb, on the sidewalks. The only shared space, I only identified 2 locations for a shared street, and that was by the Hungry Ghost on South Oxford and the German Cafe beer garden on Handsome Place. Boom, everything else, but nobody has a visual. So you could vote on something in the abstract, but it'd be harming the community. How do you do that? You can't even ask a simple question to DOT.
Thanks, Ernie.
Okay.
Maisha?
I just want some clarity. I actually live right in front of that the Gates Avenue Triangle, and I'm trying to figure out exactly what the proposal is for. It's for the street gates between Vanderbilt and Fulton. And what exactly are we trying to recommend for it?
No, this is not, this is
It's
gates
DOT proposal.
between Vanderbilt and Clinton. Forget the plaza. This is gates. This is what I'm saying. This is gates between Vanderbilt and Clinton.
So that's what we're actually, okay.
That's what we talking about now for shared streets.
Okay, I read something else. Okay, thank you.
Brian.
Thank you. So in addition to DOT, I agree with Mr. Augustus that DOT's communication on this point was a bit lackluster. Not only was the one-way conversion drop, but also the shared street. Just looking at the schematic here, the markings, indicate the street is largely remaining as is. You can see the yellow line running through it. All that remains from the original proposal is a bike corral on the northeast corner of Vanderbilt and Gates, and then a bike corral on the southwest corner of Clinton and Gates. That's all there is. There's no more one-way conversion. There's not even a shared street anymore. It's just these two bike corrals and the sidewalk bulb outs that accompany them.
Thomas.
So now this is the new, wait a minute, I'm trying to understand what Brian just said.
Hold on, Esther, hold on. Thomas.
Yeah, I'm just gonna add on to what Brian said. The updated proposal from DOT was watered down, I would say. A two-way street won't be as safe for pedestrians crossing as a one-way because you have to dodge two separate flows of traffic. The bulb outs are nice. I think that is reason alone to approve this motion. I think it's going to improve the safety of crossing the street somewhat. The suggested speed limit of 5 miles an hour is assuredly not going to be followed by New York City drivers. I think we've all witnessed how they drive. Additionally, the extra bike corrals will help members of the community park their bikes, which is, I think, another reason alone to approve the plan. DOT needs support from the community board to go forward with their plans. And I think if you support Vision Zero, the idea that we should reduce the amount of fatalities and injuries on our streets, and you support access to bicycling, and that's not just safe passage, it's also places to park your bike. You can't bike somewhere if you're not confident you're gonna be able to park when you get there. So for that reason, I think we should all approve it. Thanks.
Go to the site, look at it.
Bill.
Look at the site.
Ernie.
No, but
Bill.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at, I hit the link in the agenda, and I'm actually looking at what they actually have shown us on the link. And right now, I'm doing a shared street right now on Hoyt Street between Livingston and Schermerhorn. And what I've noticed is that currently traffic, there are problems now. There's a lot of individuals who stop. There's a lot of problems with individuals who are blocking traffic because of the shared street situation. And based on the schematic that I see in the link in the agenda, I can see the same problem recurring at this location also. So I feel if the schematic that I'm seeing right now that's linked to the agenda, if this is the thing we're looking to approve, I would then say no. I wouldn't approve this.
And keep in mind, it's a daycare center right on that block. That the kids cross the street. So you're going to have a bike corral in the street. There's still cars, traffic moving, and the kids are crossing the street. All of these things need to have traffic studies. And now I'm telling you, I'm totally confused because I'm not sure if Brian was saying that it changed again, or is it the one that we're looking at on the CB2 website? Because I got confused over that.
All right, so that's That's fair. Brian, you're not going to respond to that, but that's a fair point. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to get ready to call the question, but let me just say this. I'm mindful of the hour, and there is nothing that we can get accomplished past 3 hours. So let me get everybody aware of what's about to take place. We're about to call the question, and then we're going to breeze through in record fashion the rest of the items on the agenda. And as you know me, let me be clear. If anyone is offended, I'll apologize to you after the meeting, but we're going to get done. So with that being said, all in favor, I need you to raise your hand digitally or come off mute and say aye.
Aye.
I see 9, 10, 13, 14. I see 15 participants with raised hands, 16, 17. So I have 17 participants with raised hands, Jessica.
I think it's 18. Emily, you didn't have your hand up, but you said yes, right?
Right, but
Yes.
Now I see 18.
Okay.
I think you got that?
Yeah.
Because I have a count on my screen.
Oh, that's nice. No, yeah, I have 18.
Okay. All right, so now everybody, you can take your hands down. Okay, great. This next question is for anyone who is against the committee's recommendation. So please raise your hand.
I see 9, Lenny. How about you? 10, 11. 12, 13. Okay.
Okay, so everybody, you can lower your hand. Take your hands down. All right, anyone abstaining from the committee's recommendation? I have a count of 7.
Yeah, me too. Motion fails.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Can
All
I
right.
thank everyone? And I'm going to leave the committee, guys, because I have to be up early in the morning. And I want to thank everybody for their time.
Bye, Sid.
Yeah. I had to be up early too. I don't get to leave. Anyway, well, to chairperson report, what I want to call out is just 2 brief things. One, Senator Brisport would like for me to communicate that on Sunday, October 2nd, and unfortunately, I don't have a time yet, but we'll come back to everyone with a time. There's going to be a statewide strategy summit on childcare. And I believe the senator is a sponsor of this discussion. It's going to be a statewide summit. We will definitely have more details to share with the board members, but those who would like to immediately get information, you can get more information by emailing Team Brisport, BRISPORT, one word, at nysenate.gov, or you can call 718-643-6140. Again, 718-643-6140. And then as the board office gets additional information, we'll make sure to disseminate that to everyone who's available. I also wanted to repeat something that Councilmember Restler said. I had the opportunity, and actually I think we had another board member join me, joined Lincoln Restler and I at the tour of I think it was Leroy who joined us on the tour of the new shelter, the men's shelter that's going to open up at 1 Hoyt. As you all recall earlier, at a previous meeting, we had an information session, and this particular shelter is being run by AAPCI. And that meeting, they were clear about the way they wanted to have a discussion about their care and their programs. Well, upon taking a tour, it is what became clear and evident is that the organization wants to do right by the community and by the clients that they're going to serve. They do want to make sure that they provide a program that's conducive for getting these individuals who may be a little down on their luck back on their feet and be able to get them employment and give them the services they need. And I paid attention, is the way I'll say it, to the services that are offered. I'm optimistic that it will be successful. And then I hope that we can stay close to them. We will stay close to them, and we'll have them come back and give an update to the board once they've had a chance to open up the shelter and get things running in a more robust way. But definitely wanted to add that. Some of the other comments I have, I'll save them because they're just really more updates. And I want to be mindful of making sure we move forward with the time. The next item on the agenda is the elected officials and dignitaries. So and tonight, I'm going to ask that if you represent Senator Bridgeport, Councilmember Restler, or Assemblywoman Joanne Simon, and you're still a representative on the line, that you hold your comments. If you have any updates, you could put them in the chat. With that, I'm going to ask for those who are still on the line, and I'll start with Andrew representing Councilmember Crystal Hudson.
Thank you, Chair Singletary. I'm going to be quick here. So in terms of updates, so last month we passed our first piece of legislation and our first law as part of Crystal's Black Agenda for New York City. The law was signed into law by Mayor Adams last week. It mandates that the Department of Health produce material that educates New Yorkers on doulas and to inform folks about the benefits of doulas and midwives. And the aim here is to help reduce the Black maternal mortality rate issue that our borough specifically has. So that was our first law as a member of the City Council for Crystal. Secondly, today at this week's stated meeting, we introduced the Age in Place NYC legislative package. So this set of bills does everything from guaranteeing housing security for older adults, ensuring that older adult centers provide culturally competent and responsive programming, create a telemedicine program that ensures that older adults and folks who are homebound have the resources and medical devices to ensure that their health and are kept up to date, and a bunch of other things. So if you're interested in this package, you can reach out to me. We can talk more offline, and I'll give you the specific bills. Thirdly, participatory budgeting. So last year and during COVID, it was on a hiatus. Finally, it's back. So the council is revitalizing PB this year. And so we need as much help as we can get. Our office is allocating $1 million in capital funding. So that'll cover, anything from park improvements, it could be something at a night shift development, whatnot. We're having neighborhood assemblies in the coming weeks. We have one on September 27th at 5:30 p.m. That's virtual. If you're interested, once again, feel free to reach out to me, or if you sign up for our newsletter, you'll get the information there. And over the next couple of months, we'll be soliciting ideas, and just getting ideas for projects from folks and submitting them for agency review. And then one more quick thing. I've talked about this before, but we have in our office every week a housing specialist. So if you know anyone who's having issues either applying for an affordable housing lottery or certain benefits, please send them our way. They're in the office every Wednesday from, I think, 12:30 to 6. And then secondly, we've just added an attorney who's in office every week on Thursdays from 2:30 to 6:30 to assist with any legal issues. So he cannot represent our constituents, but he can provide legal consultation. So if you or anyone you know is interested or needs that assistance, you can reach out to our office and we can set up an appointment. And then Last thing I'll plug is this Saturday morning, 9 a.m. at R&D Foods. It's in Prospect Heights. We're gonna have coffee with Crystal, so come say hi. Most of our office will be there. Of course, Crystal will be there. So any issues you want to talk about, anything at all, come say hi, enjoy some, free coffee, tea, and pastries, and be in community with fellow residents of D35. So that's it for me, and thanks again, y'all.
Stacy from Senator Brian Kavanagh.
Yeah, I'll be super brief. I know you had such a long meeting. I just want to say hi, show my face to all the new members. I know there's a lot of you. I put my information in the chat. I personally feel like I'm mostly here to listen and take notes, which I did, and I will report back to the senator. But please feel free to reach out to me. I represent the Brooklyn portion of Senator Kavanagh's district. So any housing issues, any DOT issues, all of those kinds of things, I'm very eager to help you. That's it.
Thank you, Stacy.
Sure.
A blast from the past for some of us. I'm going to call on our buddy Dan, who's going to represent, Daniel Abramson, who's going to represent Borough President Antonio Reynoso.
Hey, good evening, everyone. It's great to be with you again. Many of you I know, and some of you I've yet to meet, but I look forward to meeting you all and being Borough President Reynoso's representative to CB2. I'll keep it brief as well.
That was really brief. You went back on mute.
I'm so sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
That's great. I'll keep it brief, but we had a really busy summer. We put on the Wingate concert series again. The borough president followed through on his campaign promise to invest all his capital funding in for his first year in our public hospital system to improve maternal mortality in Brooklyn. Right now, we're in the process of rolling out our comprehensive plan. So we have a lot going on. I look forward to coming to CB2 to keep track of your issues, to be there for your constituent needs. I'll put my contact info in the chat. I'm also a constituent of CB2. I live in the community board district, so I care about your needs on a personal level. And I really just appreciate your time and look forward to meeting you all. Thank you very much.
Thanks. It's good to see you again. Representing the Kings County District Attorney's Office, J.Watkins.
Good evening, everyone. Hope all is well. DA Gonzalez sends his well wishes. The DA has had an exciting and robust summer season, attending many events in the community, from food drives, and most recently, he was at the 9/11 memorial out in Brooklyn, commemorating that tragic day. Just a couple of things, I'll keep it brief, but I always ask that you go to our website, brooklynda.org. There are updated newsletters and press releases of important information that the community should know about regarding all of the types of things that are going on in the DA's office, especially in regards to the prosecutions of crimes that are occurring in the community. And there's also some important links there to resources, especially as an uptick in fraud against elderly people. So right now on our website is some information regarding how to avoid those scams, especially as they're directed to our senior citizens. The last thing I'll say is to be aware of our upcoming Hispanic Heritage Month celebration. That will be on Monday, October 3rd, and from 6 to 9 o'clock p.m. And the final details have not been set yet, but again, on our website, brooklynda.org, please visit that within the next few days, and you'll find the details there. That's all I have, and look forward to the rest of a nice summer. Thank you.
Thank you. We're up to committees to report. Finance and Personnel, Mr. Jordan.
Thank you, Mr. Singletary. Just briefly, our last meeting was May 24th. We don't meet regularly every month, but we do have meetings scheduled. Our next meeting will be September 29th at 6 p.m. and I'll have more to report after that. We are meeting about 5 times during during this fiscal year, and it may be more frequently. Most of our meetings, we have 5 meetings scheduled, but we do have some ad hoc meetings based on need. And as those occur, I will report back to the board as to what transpired. That's about it for me, Mr. Singletary.
Land use, Mr. Gordon.
Thank you, Chair Lenny. We'll be meeting next, Landmarks Land Use will be meeting next week. We'll have a number of landmark certificate appropriateness applications, and I think a couple other items. Thank Dr. Christopher, co-chair, and thank you to Karen Johnson, secretary, and all the members who have followed and worked hard on these issues. Thank you.
Parks and Recreation, Ms. Barbara Zalagrina.
Good evening, Lenny, and thank you for this. First, and thank you to my co-chair, Andrew Lastowecki, and our rotating secretaries. I first want to welcome all of the new members to the board, and specifically those who have been appointed to the Parks Committee. We are just delighted to have you and hope to see you and everyone else Monday evening at our next meeting, where we're going to hear about the Brooklyn Commons Plaza wayfinding plan. At our last meeting in June, very quickly, we had a comprehensive update on capital projects from the Parks Department. And you should know that since then, the Susan Smith McKinney Stewart Park, which used to be Brooklyn Bridge Park 2, has opened to the light of everyone who's using that park. We also had a presentation about Brooklyn Bridge Park at Pier 1. They're undertaking an extensive renovation of that entrance to address problems of congestion, narrow pathways, and increase concession space, and address the lack of bathrooms at that area. That's about a year away till we see the finished product. We also heard about the Bridge Plaza Community Garden they're renovating. And we also heard from the urban space people talking about their proposed holiday market. It was, and we even heard from our own Betty Fibish about school gardens. And just to be quick, that's about it. And we hope to see you Monday. Thank you.
Youth Education and Cultural Affairs, Betty Fibish.
Thanks, Chair Singletary. Before I give my report, I want to recognize the passing of Dorothea Thompson Manning, who was our co-chair for many years. I don't quite know how many years, but she worked with our committee for a long time. She was dedicated to the children and the families in our community. She always asked thoughtful questions. She wasn't afraid to raise important concerns and, challenge some of our speakers, but always for the betterment of the community and the children, and she'll be missed. So thank you for remembering our co-chair. Briefly, our committee met June 22nd. The highlight was the presentation by the EDC about the Abolitionist Plaza. If everybody remembers, this is an area we've been following, and they had been concerned about a dog run in a historic and sacred place on top of the tunnels. And we received a report that the design was updated in consultation with the council member Restler, the Downtown Partnership, our Community Board 2, and others. And they anticipate the grand opening next summer. They reviewed the revised design, which includes a small dog run, but that's not, it's in a different place in the Plaza Park. Open space, a sitting area, play area, a water element, and a waste receptacle. And the new dog run is not near the 227 Duffield. I mean, that was the big question. And they're working on a revised plan. They were asked the construction cost, and they don't know the cost because they have to revise the design, so that adds to the cost. We received a thorough report from Taya, an overview of the statement of district needs and so on. And thank you. Thank you for staying on the meeting and so long. Okay.
So our community agency and partners, we'll start with the Brooklyn Public Library.
Hi, good evening, Chair Singletary and the board. Welcome to the new members. Gonna be quick. Rachel had to hop off the call, so I'm gonna be mostly Brooklyn Heights, but super quick plug for the Adam Street Library in Dumbo. That's my location. Please come visit if you haven't yet, especially our new members. For the Brooklyn Heights Library, it's super exciting tonight because we're all open. All 4 of the libraries in Community District 2 are currently open to the public. Brooklyn Heights Library is our location with also Sunday hours. So Brooklyn Heights Library is open 7 days a week. The other library is open 6 days a week. Rachel wanted me to pass on that we're super excited to have a lot of robust adult and teen programs. Highlights include drop-in resume and career help every Thursday morning, a writers meetup every Thursday evening, book discussion groups, chair yoga. There's a teen vision survey, getting a lot of feedback, monthly teen LGBTQ+ empowerment workshops. You know what, it's just on and on and on. We could talk forever, but we got a little bit of time. Also, the chess program at Brooklyn Heights is back, thanks to the wonderful support of the Friends group there. And that's it for Brooklyn Heights. One more plug, Adam Street, come say hi, yay! And I'm gonna toss it over to Tracy.
Tracy, you're on mute.
Thanks, sorry about that. Okay, we have a lot going on at Clinton Hill also. We are still taking applications for the Friends of Clinton Hill Library Craft Fair. That's going to be, the applications are accepted through September 30th. The craft fair is going to be Saturday, October 22nd. And these will all be small local vendors, and there'll be, many of them are first-time vendors. So you'll see things there that you will not be seeing at other craft fairs. Also on October 1st, we're really happy to be having volunteers for wildlife back. They're going to be doing the owl discovery. They'll have 4 live owls, and you'll meet the owls and learn about how the owls are interacting with people on Long Island and Brooklyn and Queens. And we also have a lot of different programs going on. We have teen video games on Thursdays, a teen anime club on Fridays, and starting next week, we're back to our usual story times on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and craft for kids under the age of 5 on Wednesdays. And now I'm going to turn it over to Alex at Walt Whitman.
Hi, I'm Alex. It's probably been a while since you heard that. I'm the new supervisor here at Walt Whitman. We are currently building our team. We just hired a children's librarian, yay, first time in years. We're going to start programs in October, so keep a lookout for that. You can check the website or just walk on in. I'm sure Anna, that is her name, will be happy to see new families coming in and families returning. We also have our friends group, which we're going to be growing. We have a general interest meeting November 15th, so put that on your calendar. I'm also going to drop the event link in the chat. And I'm sure there was something else I had to say. One second.
Don't worry about it. You can email.
Yeah. I'm just gonna drop everything that I was gonna say in the chat.
Thanks.
So thank you.
Thank you. Next, we're gonna call on the Brooklyn Navy Yard.
Thank you, Chair Singletary. I have my blue light glasses on since it's after 9 o'clock, so that'll be a physical reminder to keep it brief.
If not, I'll remind you.
Thank you. Good to see all the returning members. For the new members, my name is Ethan Mulligan. I'm the Director of Community and Government Affairs for the Brooklyn Navy Yard Development Corporation. We are the mission-driven nonprofit that oversees the Brooklyn Navy Yard, your neighbor in Community Ward 2. Over 300 acres on the campus, almost 500 businesses now, over 11,000 people coming to work every day. And our mission at BNYDC is to preserve and create high quality jobs, middle-class jobs, mostly manufacturing jobs, anchor New York City's industrial sector, and most importantly, connect local residents to economic, educational, cultural, any other resources that we have available on the yard. So when I'm here at CB2, you'll hear me talk a lot about the cultural resources through our exhibits and programs team that you can come visit us at the yard, and also very heavily on about our employment center. On the first, I'm just dropping the link in the chat for our programs.
Ethan, you went back on mute.
And I'm back. Thanks, folks. Sorry about that. Join us September 24th. It's the last of our wellness series for the summer. It's at Building 92. Register, it's free. We did yoga, we did HIIT. I think this one is hip hop dance. Come on down to 77 and visit our food businesses, Transmitter Brewing, Rooftop Reds, it's Building 275 and Kings County Distillery on the Wegman side. And programs coming up Archtober. We're participating in Archtober, so check that link for the tours already up for Archtober. And we're also going to be doing Open House New York again this year. So it's tough to keep the balance of the safety and security of the yard and people wanting to visit. Open House New York is the perfect example to get behind the gates and the walls here at Brooklyn Navy Yard and get into some of the businesses and see some of the spaces. And join us on some of those tours as well that are on that page, architecture and infrastructure, World War II, all the different types of tours you love. And the last plug, I'll put another link just a second in there for our employment center. Best time to push folks there is Tuesdays. There's other days, but in the link you'll see, but Tuesdays are walk-ins. If you get there for 9:45, we have a 10 a.m. information session. You can learn about all the different types of jobs on the yard, get in our system. Eventually, after you come to the information session, get resume help, interview prep. Our workforce development team is amazing. And anyone you know who's looking for work, send them on down because their goals for this year were 90% Brooklyn hires, 60% hyper local, which is 10 zip codes around us, 25% public housing residents, 25% long-term unemployed, women in non-traditional roles. So resumes that would normally go to the bottom of a pile, our team is invested heavily in getting those up to the top of the pile and getting you connected with businesses on the yard or coming to work for us at BNYDC. So thank you for your time, everybody.
Thank you. We have a representative from Department of Sanitation.
Yep. Hi there, everyone. This is a long meeting. You guys are really troopers. So I'm just here to make a quick announcement about our fall leaf collection that's coming up. It's a yearly collection that we do. This year we'll be offering two days of collection. You can set your material out on November 19th and November 3rd for collection the following day. Basically, we just want you to set out your leaves in a paper lawn and leaf bag or an unlined rigid container. So that means like a trash bin with no bag or anything inside of it, so that we can collect that material and we can turn it into compost. We can prevent it from going to landfill. So you can participate even if you're not currently signed up for curbside composting or anything like that. If you've got leaves, we want them. So we will have a flyer that we can send to the board pretty soon, and I think you should all be getting mailers as well. We may also be sending some free paper lawn leaf bags to the district office if they're okay with that, which they may be able to distribute. We'll figure that out. But yeah, stay tuned. You'll get more information as we get closer to the date. But nyc.gov/leaf collection is the place to go. Thank you very much for your time.
Representative from the Red Cross.
Good evening, Chairperson Singletary and ladies and gentlemen. My name is Richard Morrow. I'm the Greater Red Cross Community Relations Ambassador for Community Board 2. Around the country, there are presently 33 disaster relief operations. 10 are in the West and Southwest, and 23 are in the Eastern region of our country. All are climate change related. This week locally, we assisted 110 adults and 35 children following 38 fire emergency relief operations. As we make our way back to our online and in-person work or school, what comes with that is potential stressors like financial burdens, work and school pressure, climate and political changes, as well as pandemic-related hardships like social isolation, any of all of which can lead to mental health challenges. The National Mental Health Association offers these 7 self-care tips that can help your mental health. 1, set a routine and keep to it. 2, get enough sleep. 3, exercise. 4, eat nutritious. 5, drink plenty of fluids. 6, practice mindfulness, meditation, and gratitude. And 7, decluttering and cleanliness are essential in your home and work environment. A reminder, the Red Cross programs can help you and our community. Our courses are free. Please check out our website, redcross.org, for details and to view our programs, which can be virtual or in person. It's an honor and privilege for me to speak with you all this evening. Thank you.
I don't think I missed any other representatives. I think we got all the representatives tonight. Okay, great. Thank you all for, sticking with us through this very long and unusual meeting. So with that being said, I'm going to ask that we skip board business. If anybody has any board business, you can email the office or me directly, and I will respond to you with any board business. We're going to move to item number 12, community forum. This portion of the agenda is for non-community board members, those who have a comment or something they want to bring to the attention of community board, particularly and hopefully not for items that have already been voted on, because those issues have moved forward. But if anyone has any comments, please introduce yourself, come off mute, and then let me ask that you do two things. We're going to keep the comments to no more than 2 minutes. At that 2-minute mark, you will be muted. And then we ask that you identify yourself, and if you could, identify what portion of the district that you reside in. Curry? Am I saying that right?
No, it's Kenwin, but it's okay.
I'm sorry, so
Sydney,
Kenwin, I apologize, Kenwin.
Sydney Myers gets it messed up sometimes too. There's an N.
Okay, so I'm gonna get it right, Kenwin.
I feel it's kind of troubling that it seems like the community board, I've been looking at these meetings for the past couple of months, even before the summertime, and it seems like the community board doesn't really want to acknowledge Willoughby Avenue Neighbors United. There's 800 of us. There's a solid 800 of us who live on this street. And it feels like, especially with respect to this open street issue, it's like no one wants to say that there's 800 people that actually came together against this thing. The community board allowed this open street during COVID, but it did it with, like, there's unintended consequences now. So, and I think that it needs to be addressed, and I think they need to not shy away from it, right? And you actually need to reach out to the people who live on Willoughby Avenue. There's a lot of people, like I live at 130 Willoughby Avenue. Again, I'm not ashamed to tell you where I live. I've lived there for 30 years. I've talked to multiple neighbors on my block who don't know anything about the community board. They don't know about these meetings. They don't know anything. So to suggest that these DOT surveys are legit because people participated in them, it's kind of skewed, right? Because there's a lot of people who don't know. There are people who don't know who you guys are. I know who you guys are because I've been following this for the past couple of years now. But I think that needs to be taken into consideration. Like the people who actually live here, reach out, connect with them, and not just, someone who comes to the neighborhood for a restaurant or whatever other business. Right. That's all. Thank you.
So Kenwin, I appreciate you making those comments. And here's what I'm going to do, because we have received a lot of information from the residents along Willoughby Avenue. And so this is what I'm going to do. I know some of the members who make up your group. I'm going to reach out to them because some of them happen to be my neighbors, because living on Willoughby is nothing that anyone should be ashamed of. But I'm going to meet with your group. We're going to coordinate an opportunity. I'll meet with your group individually, and then we'll have a different dialogue. All right. And thank you for speaking up. Anybody else? Cheryl, Ms. Gelbs?
Hi, Lenny, how are you?
I'm well, how are you?
I'm okay, I'm here. My question is, when are we gonna get a district manager?
You'll get
What
an
is
email for
going
that.
on?
You'll get an email about that this week. Hold on. You'll get an email about that this week, waiting for a location to let us have the meeting.
Okay, because it's been too long.
Trust me, I know how long it's been. Me and Taylor, the man in the office. I appreciate the love. Any other questions?
No, I just want to say thank you to Taya for doing such a wonderful job. She's a one-person army in that office.
Taya's all right. Let's not make her head nominee jump. Taya's great. Taya's great. Taya's great. Any other
Thanks,
comments? Any other comments? Not from you, Cheryl. You can go back on mute. Any other comments?
Thank you.
All right, love you, everybody. Get home safe. Let's adjourn. Good night.
Thanks, Lenny. Thanks, Taya.
Good night.
Night.
Thanks,
Motion
Taya.
motion to